Going to call the Star City Council meeting to order. It's Tuesday, July 6, 2021 at 7 p.m. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was nearly as loud as at the hometown celebration. That was awesome. Tonight we have our invocation by Mr. Buckley Perks for the Star's 4th Ward. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this great land in which we live. We're grateful for the many individuals, men and women, who have bravely sacrificed so that we can have the freedoms that we have today, that we can gather as a city council to discuss the needs and desires of the city. And we pray that that will bless this meeting, that it will be productive and efficient and effective. Bless those men and women that are serving our city, that they will have clear minds as they make decisions and on behalf of the people of the city of Star, and bless their families. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You could go get cool. All right. Roll call.
Hershey.
Here.
Keys.
Here.
Chadwick.
Here.
Salmonson.
Here.
Nielsen.
Present.
Okay. Did we have the Ada County prosecutor here? They may have looked at, oh, you are here. I thought maybe you would have looked in here and turned around and ran. So go ahead. The floor is yours, Mr. Robert. Is it Blizzard? Blizzard. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, we got so many people, that's probably the way this night's going to go. So go ahead, sir.
I'd like to imagine everyone's here to hear me speak, but I highly doubt that. But Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Robert Blizzard. I am a deputy prosecutor to Jan Bennett's. I represent her today. I supervise our magistrate division at the prosecutor's office. We do all the prosecuting here for the misdemeanors and the infractions by contract. So I'm here to speak about that contract. We also do the felonies, but of course that's done under the statute, not by contract. So I'm just here to present on the coming fiscal year and our budget request for that year. My office is requesting the renewal of that contract at the same rate that it's been for many years. That's $30,000 for the cost of prosecution. Like I said, that's the same it's been for some many years. I can give you some highlights about some of the work we've done in terms of new case filings between October 1st, 2019 and September 31st, 2020. We filed 86 new cases for Star. That includes both misdemeanors and infractions, the majority of which were misdemeanors. To date, from October 1st, 2020 to now, we filed 73, and we anticipate that number is going to go probably by the end of this fiscal year to over 100 cases. We see certainly a steady increase in our new case filings for the city of Star. I think that's probably attributable to growth as we're seeing in all of Ada County. So I certainly think that's consistent with the type of growth that we're seeing elsewhere. I'm happy to report that we're trying cases again at the Ada County Courthouse. So that's helpful in getting cases resolved. I think that by and large, I'm happy to be able to report to you that things are going smoothly. We have a good relationship with the police department here. There are 80 county deputies by contract as well. And so we have a good training and command relationship with them. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the contract. There are no other material modifications or anything like that to the contract. And I anticipate my office will send that over to you as soon as I've fielded questions and that there aren't any requested modifications from the city.
Any questions of the deputy prosecutor? None?
Okay,
That was easy.
I like it. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming to Star.
It's always easy when it's the same amount, so.
It is easy, and best luck to all of you in whatever.
Hey. So the Valley Regional Transit will not be presenting tonight, so we'll move on to item 5, the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of items 5A, approval of claims provided and previously approved June 16th, 2021 to June 30th, 2021. Item 5B, minutes is available. I don't think we had any minutes. Item 5C, findings of facts, Stonebriar subdivision annexation, and item 5D, final plats, Grinders Hope Springs subdivision number 3.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I need somebody to second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys.
in the conditions of approval for the for Stonebriar,
Okay,
there's a condition that says the city and Stonebriar HOA shall work towards an agreement to provide for a future pathway along the Boise River within the HOA common lot. And to me, that sounds like almost like it's an optional item, which I don't believe was the intent of the council. And I'd like to amend that language to say the city and the Stonebriar HOA shall come to an agreement to provide for a future pathway along the Boise River within the HOA common lot within 90 days.
what page was that on?
It's near the end on the conditions.
Apparently I'm not. Where's that at there, Sean? Oh, under findings, let's see that maybe it's here.
Under statement of compliance, it's on the last page.
Okay, there we go. So you're saying, instead of saying the city and Stonebriar HOA shall work towards an agreement, you're wanting the wording to state what?
They'll come to an agreement.
Shall come to an agreement.
Work towards sounds like, yeah, they'll work towards it, but maybe we'll get there and maybe we won't. I think the intent is that we're going to have an agreement.
Okay,
And I'd like to put a time limit on that too.
Which is-
Well, I'd put down 90 days, but open to a conversation if staff thinks that's reasonable.
Sean? 90 days? Okay, any question, any further discussion? So you can amend your motion?
I amend my motion to include that updated language.
Okay, we got a second?
I'll re-second my second.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Did you say aye, Councilman Keys?
I said aye.
Okay, all right, just want to make certain that you did. All right, that motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move on to item 6A, which is I think what you're all here for, the public hearing for Cherished. So give me just a second here. We had a computer malfunction right before the hearing started, so we have to reload some stuff here, so. Presentation edits 5. Is that the one I need to put in? Sure. Is it that one there?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. All right. So just so everybody's aware, on the back of your sheet right here is our public hearing process. For those of you that have not participated in a public hearing here, you're going to sign up to speak, which I've got 3 sheets, so I got plenty of those. I'm going to open the public hearing. I'm going to ask the council if there's any ex parte communication or contact regarding this application. The applicant will have up to 20 minutes to present their project. The council can ask the applicant questions and staff questions. Then we'll have public testimony, 3 minutes per person. Those for the project will speak. Those against will then speak, and those who are neither for will speak third. The council may ask the individual speaking follow-up questions. That does not count towards their 3 minutes. The applicant has a rebuttal time of 10 minutes. The council will continue to ask applicant and staff questions at that point. I will close the public hearing, and then the council will deliberate. Either a motion is going to be made to approve with conditions, deny, or table the application to a date certain in the future. I'm going to tell you right now, this is awesome. This is public involvement, and this is what's important for any process. but it helps shape our city for the future. So as this is a public hearing, just make certain that there's no cheering, clapping, jeering, or speaking out during the hearing. Only the person that's up here at the podium has the floor to speak during their allotted time. If someone does speak out, claps or whatever, we're going to ask them to leave the hearing because we want to keep these hearings civil so everybody can be heard. So I appreciate everybody's cooperation and participation tonight. So I'm going to open the public hearing. I'm going to ask the city council if there's any ex parte communication or contact regarding this application.
None.
None.
No, Mr. Mayor.
No, sir.
Okay, hearing none. Hang on one sec here. Let me get this puppy going. And we have the applicant go ahead and come up here, state your, oh, I'm sorry. You also will need to state your name and address for the record also, okay? So go ahead and state your name and address, sir.
I'm Louis Parsons, address 1159 East Iron Eagle Drive, Eagle, Idaho. And want to thank the council, mayor, for having us make this presentation tonight. And we'll get to it. I'm a project planner with Sterling Homes. And I'm going to outline our development team. With me tonight, we have the owner and principal of Sterling Homes, Jim Zubiaga. We've got the president of Sterling Home, Brian Cinderhoff. Dennis Husbeth is our vice president. I'm a project manager, land planner for the company. Deborah Nelson is our land use counsel with Givens Pursley. Bonnie Layton is our senior planner engineer with NV5. And John Roders is our consulting landscape architect with South Beck and Baird. So if you can see the site plan, this is our ultimate site plan. We've gone through a variety of site plan iterations to get to this point. And this is a rendered site plan that shows sort of near floating feather, the primary open space area. And we also have open space to the south, but I'll go through sort of iterations of how we got to the site plan. Again, the project location, it's a 40-acre site located on the south side of Floating Feather Road. To the north of the site, the zoning's R4 rural urban transition, and it's developed. And to the south of the site, the zoning's R4, and it's developed. And to the east of the site, it's R2 DA, and it's developed. And to the west of us is undeveloped. Cherished Estates. We originally, when we looked at this thing, we looked at the comp plan and we looked at how to map this and we came up with a 180 unit layout. Through various discussions with staff, we modified the site plan and we originally, per the staff report, submitted a site plan for 153 residential units with 12 common lots. After further discussions with city staff and with adjacent homeowners, approximately 30, the plan was modified to 136 single-family lots and 12 common area lots. The total final density proposed on the plat before you this evening is 3.38 units per acre. Pursuant to the comp plan allows 3 to 5 units per acre. So we're at the lower end of that at 3.38 as presently proposed. The lots on the site range at the minimum at 5,500 square feet up to 16,000 square feet. The average lot size is about 7,200 square feet. Over 23% of the site, 9.43 acres, is qualified open space and 7.8 acres is open space, which is more than what's required. The landscaping proposed shows 558 trees, 444 are required, close to 1,300 shrubs. We have 2 large parks proposed. And the main large park will have a pedestrian-friendly sandy beach area. We envision it being available for swimming and also fishing activities and access. Again, getting back to our original layout, this is what we first came out and are schematically putting together. This is the first submittal master plotted to show compliance with the zoning. And then this is the master plotting consistent with the map that's before you this evening. I'd like to go into some of the project attributes. The main park includes a play structure and picnic area. The second park has a picnic area, pergola, and play area. We're also including a 10-foot wide paved pathway along the west and south side to provide connectivity. Regional connectivity is really important to us, especially to the Hunter Creek Sports Park west of the site. Also, along Floating Feather, we have a 30-foot buffer, and we're going to be incorporating a 5-foot high berm and fence. And I have some 3D renderings for you just to conceptualize this later on. And also, all sidewalks within the project are going to be detached. All commenting agencies have supported the project, and we agree with ACHD's conditions of approval. We agree with ACHD's conditions of approval, and we agree to pay ITD our proportionate share of impacts to state highways. We have reviewed in detail the staff report that's before you this evening and the findings, and we agree to all the conditions and recommendations as presented by city staff. We continue to monitor groundwater, and all of this data is being incorporated into our civil design. We conducted community outreach, and that led to the site plan adjustments accordingly. What we've specifically done is we've reduced the density along the south side and the east side and internally as you transition to the center with transitional lot sizes. And we're going to continue to endeavor and be very considerate of the placement of architecture on the south side and east side. Well, we're looking at, whether or not there's a single story or a 2-story, and we do our best to match that as much as possible. And I'm also going to show some exhibits too that shows you the distance between our proposed lots and homes and the existing lots and homes. We understand that construction activity is a major concern of the adjacent homeowners. And so if approved by staff, we'd agree to block off construction accesses at West Schumard and North Cygnus Place. And during our construction, again, we'd have to still comply with what the city wants and have emergency vehicle, but understanding that the adjacent projects don't want construction traffic coming through their project, and we understand that. Also, when we make our connection to Floating Feather, this is going to provide additional outlet for adjacent development, which is going to alleviate congestion, improve safety, and increased access for emergency vehicles. As far as the product, when looking at this, we really want to, provide homeownership opportunities, and the product size based on the lots we're showing would accommodate homes approximately 2,000 square feet to the low 3,000 square feet. We're going to be building a combination of single-story and 2-story product along the southern and east boundaries, again, being sensitive to the existing homeowners. I wanted to go over this traffic route. This shows the project to the east of us and also the project to the south, and shows us connecting to Floating Feather. Again, as I stated, we would, if acceptable to the city, block construction traffic to that east and to the south. But in working with the plan with city staff, we are stubbing to the vacant property to the west, and then we're connecting to the stub streets on both the east and south side of the project. This is a building setback evaluation. This shows you a green common lot along the south side of our property. It's a 15-foot building setback from the center of the ditch at the irrigation line, and I have distances shown on the later exhibit. But this is just showing that the lots are not going to abut right on PL to the homes to the south. This, if you look, this is in the southwest corner of the site. The average lot depth is about 107 feet. The property line at the edge of the irrigation easement, it's 20-foot setback from the property line. Average through here, it's 26 feet wide common lot for the irrigation easement. So that's an average 26-foot buffer between the back of the lots and the lots to the south. The lots to the south, the average lot depth is 110 feet and has similar setbacks. Right here, this exhibit sort of outlines to the south and to the east sort of the distance between what we've pre-plotted. And you see, you've got 90 feet, 70 feet. I think the closest on the south end is about 62 feet. On the east side, in the south east corner, at the very north, this is where we did density transition and widen those lots. We have about 67 feet to that home. And then you can see it goes from 147 feet to 163 feet of separation between the structures. And again, that was all a process of us getting the input and doing the density transition and modifying the site plan based on the concerns we did here. Here's some conceptual elevations for a 2-story product. We've got a 1-story product, again, conceptual, 3-car garage. These are floor plans that show, this is a single-story floor plan that would accommodate about a 2,100 square foot product with a 3-car garage. There's another floor plan that we've looked at. Again, these dimensions would fit on many of these lots. This is a floor plan, again, about 1,000 square feet, single story. This is a smaller floor plan with an optional 3-car garage that could fit maybe on some of those corner lots that are smaller. That's about 1,800 square feet. This is a 2-story floor plan, that gets closer to that 3,000 square foot. Again, 2-car with an optional 3-car garage. Another plan that we could accommodate, and again, have pre-plotted on a lot of these. Plan 5, this is at the low 3,000s. Here's a product that's essentially a single story, but they have a bonus room. So from the front elevation, it looks single story, but you have an area for a bonus. Again, 2-car garage with an optional 3. We've pre-plotted this. And here's another product, first and second story, 3-car garage, again, 3,200 square feet plus or minus. Again, these are fit lists that we've done based on our latest site plan that we've put together. So I'm just going to check my time.
You got about 9 minutes.
Okay, great. Here's a 3D rendering when we took our site plan and we incorporated it and looked at the conditions. This shows you the setback on Floating Feather. So shows you the entrance, shows you the detached nature of the sidewalk. And this is a perspective of what it would look like entering off a Floating Feather heading west. This is internal to the project site. Again, you have the detached sidewalks, significant landscaping, additional trees. This is a conceptualization of the primary park that we have that's at the north end of the site. Again, what we envision here is a play structure, gathering area, picnic area, but it's really important for the water feature to have sort of a beach feel so it can be accessed by the community for use. And so it's not just a standalone water area that can't be accessible. So that's what we'd incorporate into the design, that it's really a usable, interactive feature. This is, again, another perspective of the park. This is the adjacent to the park playing fields. This is right at the north when you come into the site, and there's a road that sort of bifurcates that open space area. Another perspective of that. And this is, since this does show about 136 units, this would probably be developed in phases. The first phase would be, probably 50 units or so. So this is something we've conceptualized as doing this in phases. But this would be a good idea of what the first phase of development would look like. Again, streetscape perspective. This is again, the entrance. This is what it'd be looking like from Floating Feather as you're driving down, going east-west. You see the landscaping we're proposing, buffered area, and again, sort of a more elevated bird's eye view of the entrance to the site, and a bigger perspective of what this looks like coming off of Floating Feather. Some additional site considerations. We did want to mention that the site is actually lower. In actually some cases on the south, it's only about a foot lower, but in general, the site is 2 to 5 feet below the adjacent properties. So in addition to the setback from the structures and the buffer, you're also from an elevation standpoint lower. So again, reiterating what I said, the canal easement provides an additional 26-foot average width buffer between Cherridge Estates and the Waterview Estates subdivision. In the Lake Point subdivision, there's a 30-foot common lot on the western boundary. So again, we did look at this. We did understand the concerns of the adjacent properties, and we've endeavored to demonstrate and provide as much buffering and distance as possible from those adjacent existing developments. I did get a note here. I want to clarify, I think on one of the floor plans, I might have misspoken and said we've got 1,000 square foot. The lowest end that we're showing as far as a proposed floor plan is about 1,800 square feet. And we really appreciate the opportunity. We do understand this is, in the middle of development. We've gone through a process where we've looked at what we think is appropriate from a marketing standpoint and what we think is appropriate for the neighborhood. And we're excited. We appreciate the consideration. And myself, I'm here. The principal of my company's here. And our other consultants are here to answer any questions you guys have, and really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, any questions of the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hershey?
First off, thank you. Couple questions here. You started at 180 units, you said?
That was when we were looking at the comp plan and we were laying out doing a yield. That was our first yield concept that we put together.
And then 153, then 136. My question is, it's already zoned R2. Did you ever think about making it an R2? I mean, it's zoned R2. That's an entitlement. Comp plan is not an entitlement when there's a zoning attached. It's different. So,
yeah, I mean, we're looking at is when we were designing this site and we came up with our first layout, and then we came out with the 136 layout. What we're trying to do is provide homes that not 15,000 square foot lots, not these massive homes. We're trying to provide homes that are affordable, more affordable, and inconsistent with the comp plan. So I totally recognize we're in here asking for an amendment to the zoning to increase the density over what's above, and with consideration of the concerns that have been provided to us. But yes, we did look at, R2 would yield approximately 80 units. And then we looked at, well, if we wanted to do something where we could provide certain product that's 1,800, 2,000 square feet, what would we need to do that from an affordability perspective?
well, that's interesting, but there's R2 and R4 basically surround this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in my mind, a true transition would be no more than an R3. That's my mind. And that's my main concern right now is I just believe, well, first, I'm glad you didn't even bring us 180 units, and I'm glad you didn't bring 153. That would have been, I believe, even more excessive. But quite honestly, I tend to lean more towards the zoning designation as you have, and it's been that way for a while. However, I would like to see the density come down closer to that. I'm not saying exactly at R2. I don't ever put a limit like that, but I'd like to see it come down to more of a true transition of a neighborhood. And with that, a question for you. You said a 5-foot berm fence. Does that mean 5 foot total, or is the berm a certain amount and the fence is 5 feet?
It's just it's the total height.
And would you mind, for my visualness, where would the berm be on your general map?
The berm would be along the project frontage, so it's not depicted here, but it's a condition of approval that we understand we've got to incorporate.
Okay, so it's
Along floating feather.
the float. All right.
Yeah.
Would the fencing sit on top of that then? I'm sorry, David.
No, you're fine.
I think it's a total of 5 feet, but at the end of the day, when we go through the construction documents with the city, we're going to do what city staff tells us in compliance with the condition. We understand that there's a desire for either a berm, if it's 5 feet on top of the berm, whatever staff wants us to do, we'll accommodate.
All right, well, that's my position. I just wanted to get that,
No, thank you.
what is it? The elephant in the room out.
Yeah.
And that was what was bothering me the most. Thank you.
What's any other questions of the applicant?
Mayor Chadwick,
I'll get Councilman Nielsen.
just to follow up on that berm, how tall is the fencing material that you were anticipating to sit on top of the 5 foot? Or sit on top to make up that total?
My understanding in reading the condition is it's a combination of a berm / fence that's 5 feet. But if there's a desire to have more fencing on top of a berm, that's a minimum 5 feet, we're fine. And so as far as the exact interpretation of the condition by city staff, we're gonna do what the staff tells us to do.
I guess I'll just throw out there, my interpretation of that is that there's probably a 5-foot berm and then maybe a 5 or 6 foot fence.
Understood.
One of the other things I like the drawings that you guys brought. It's really helpful to see those 3D renderings and understand what your concept is. Out in front there with the detached sidewalk, I really like that feature as well. Would you guys be interested in putting some trees along the other side of that sidewalk also, so that we kind of create a shaded, area, nice walking path that.
I actually think that would be a good idea. And so, yeah, as far as landscaping, I do want to indicate this is schematic, but yes, if
Right.
there was a desire to put trees not only on the south side, but the north side of the detached sidewalk on the frontage, I think that would actually be a great feature.
I think of, and those of you who have come to these meetings before, you and this council I know has heard me ad nauseum talk about floating feather through parts of Eagle. And you drive through there and think of the way that's bermed and the landscape is contoured and the trees are placed through that detached sidewalk. There's not much more beautiful landscaping and frontage that can be created than I think what they've done over there. And so I would encourage you to think in those terms. Maybe take a drive over there if you're not familiar with it, along Floating Feather, just past Eagle Road.
Understood.
Okay. Any further questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys.
which ditch company are you working with on that? Have you actually met with them yet?
I believe our consultant has, but I'd have to defer to them. Middleton Mill, and we have had correspondence with them.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is they typically require setbacks of 20 feet from top of bank, which
Okay.
is different than what you indicated.
Okay.
Um,
I know, I know that we've had ongoing discussions and input from all the agencies, including them, but understand, they have minimum setbacks. So yes.
Okay. And then I have a question here for staff as well, and you might know the answer. Was there an existing development agreement from the original rezone on this? There wasn't one, okay. Okay, and then the other question I have is going through the staff reports from different agencies is a little confusing. So we've got somebody new from the school district reporting some numbers, and that report, I think probably needs some clarification. I've read your TIS. I've read what ACHD said about it. I read what the Idaho Transportation Department said about it. And interestingly enough, those two don't agree on what should happen specifically at the intersection of Plummer and Highway 44 in regards to the impact that's going to happen here. And I'm curious if you could kind of comment on what your thinking is about the impact of, given that those two can't agree on it.
Well, I know that I know we have a payment obligation, and we're gonna, whatever our proportional payment obligation, we're gonna make irregardless of what the agreed upon final improvements are between those agencies. Again, what regional improvement is required is not up to us. We're not gonna oppose, and we're gonna defer to them as to what they ultimately decide us to do and tell us what our payment obligation is.
And then one final question, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. So when you read the TIS, it does talk about some potential negative impacts that this is going to have. So at the end of the day, because this is a discretionary decision for the council, what's in it for the city of Star to go from an R2 to an R4? How does this benefit the people in the room?
I think understanding that this is a request to increase the density, we looked at this and we did understand that it's R2. We did look at adjacent density. And what we want to do is looking at the market and looking at what we think the needs are. We wanted to provide a variety of product that could provide home ownership opportunities, not a massive 4,000 square foot home on a quarter acre lot, somebody could move into a 2,000 square foot home, even a single story 2,000 square foot home. So it really is marketing this to, people that can't afford this area, who want to live in Star. Then also looking at the density transfer. We did, it was mentioned, it might be better for this to be an R3. And what we tried to do is look at the density to the south, the density to the east, and we tried to transition so it gets denser as you get closer to floating feather and less dense as you go south and east. So what I would say it brings to the table, it brings an opportunity for affordable housing for young families, and something that would really be a beautiful project for the area, with deep consideration to what impacts would be made to the adjacent owners. So that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilwoman Solomon?
at the beginning of your presentation, you had the original neighborhood concept. Can you go back to those
Sure.
slides? Not the very first one, but the second one. I think that it's the one that you have now but just not the landscape view. I noticed yes, that one right there. You have a couple dots on there for irregular lots. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, well, what we had is it's just, we know that the around the cul-de-sacs, they're just not a standard. It's like a radial lot, let's say. So it's not a minimum, let's say 60 foot wide by certain depth. It's a radial distance. So in order to get the front, you have to set it back. So it's just identifying. That's just what our design staff does. Like, okay, when you're not having an exact square or rectangle, you're having something with radial lots or angled lots or something like that. We just identify it, because then it highlights where we would need to select certain product that would fit to meet the development standards.
Got it. Thank you for
problem.
that clarification. And then my other question, you have a number of like the internal pathway system. It looks like it basically goes around the perimeter, all of the perimeter. On the southeast corner, southeast corner, there's no sidewalk in there. And do you have a sidewalk or a pathway in there?
The southeast corner, we show pathway connecting, and then it wraps all around the south up the west side up to Floating Feather.
Okay, and then on the east side, is there going to be a pathway that goes?
It connects to an existing pathway that's paralleling.
Okay, so
Yeah.
is that in Sheriff's or? in
Guys,
Lakewood?
please, hey,
Yeah.
remember what I said.
I don't
please.
know if that's been completed by the adjacent developer, but the idea was to connect it to the pathway or planned pathway, but it's not on our property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so my question was if you have talked to the neighbors about, joining in with their pathway system. We are working towards a citywide master pathway plan. And some neighborhoods want to keep it private and others are open to a public pathway idea.
Sure.
And so I think I was just curious if you have worked with. Or
we've
got their input, I guess.
what we've done is we've focused on setting back and making those lots deeper, but we're very open if there was some, again, this is going to have its own HOA separate from the other HOA. So, just spitballing here, I could see us accommodating if there was, working with them to complete or finalize a path that may or may not be complete on their property, but it would require their permission. Alternatively, if you look at the depth of those lots, you could easily accommodate a path up that southeast corner to where the road connects. So there would be a pedestrian circulation through there. If we couldn't come to terms with their HOA on getting, but as far as connectivity, it's really important to us. So if the city wanted us to ensure we had a pathway connection up that southeast side to connect to the existing neighborhood to the east, we'd certainly agree to it and accommodate it.
Okay. And then on the west side, that's a long number of houses. I'm thinking it's more than the 750-foot block length. Would you be willing to put in a kind of a micro path in between, halfway and on the west side so that people didn't have to go all the way south or north to walk through?
Yeah, and we could, obviously with the design, there's a pretty deep lot at the north side and you could see where we have that connection there. But if there was also a desire to make a pedestrian connection through there, so they weren't having to go to the very south west corner or northwest corner, we could accommodate that too.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant?
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen?
thank you. I wasn't quite done with my list from earlier, so,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, that's all right. I guess my question centers around, again, going back to density, and you've got, I think it was 38 homes listed as single story, which means that with an R3 zoning, you would have only 5-foot setbacks on the property lines, on the sides of those homes. From my perspective, that's kind of the stack them deep and sell them, I don't
Sure.
know, whatever price they get, sell them cheap. But I'd really like to see no more than a 10-foot property line setback. Understanding our code allows it. I wish it didn't. But I think in interest of trying to get this down to an R3, closer to the R3 that Councilman Hershey was talking about is desirable for me. And perhaps trimming some of those setbacks, helps us get there. I appreciate Councilwoman Salmonson's request for a pathway. They're halfway through on the west side as well, and that may help us get there. Do you know what the numbers are offhand? I haven't calculated, but what number of lots it would take to get to an R3?
I don't, well, I know, based on the acreage, the R3, that would be a reduction based on our plat. It would be a reduction of, I think, 16 units. Right now, I wanted to clarify the master plotting plan that we're showing. It's more of an exercise of showing like how we would comply with the setbacks. But yes, to be R3 zoning, at that density, we would reduce the unit count to about 120.
Yeah. That feels a little more reasonable.
And then just one thing too, regarding the path, however staff wants us to work with the adjacent project with the path. We know in the conditions it was, connect to the existing path, but we know there's some issues with that. And I'm here to represent on behalf of the owners that we're willing to look at other alternatives to provide that necessary connectivity.
And that certainly is the city's goal. Hopefully we can, see that realized. I know a lot of people in the community want that as well. So that would be great. I guess one last thought on the density and some of the reasons that you gave for bringing this proposal. In my estimation, Star has an awful lot of product that's built in this R3, R4 density. And we don't have a lot of that R2 density, that as I look across and even though our zoning or our comprehensive plan map kind of calls that out, we have, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's, in my opinion, an out of balance percentage of R3, R4 comprehensive plan map designations. And when I look at our inventory, we're a little light on some of those lower densities, and we're light, quite honestly, on some of the really higher densities. And a good community takes both. I mean, people don't like to see the fields go away, but they also don't like density. You can't have both, right? I mean, either the fields go away, you either build up or you build out. Mm-hmm. And we need to find a little more balance, and we need to build that space into our community. And so, I guess I'm pontificating more than asking you a question.
Understood.
But just commentary on some of the reasonings that you provided. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any further questions of the applicant?
Just a quick follow on. It's just to clarify my comment, if that's all right, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, Councilman Nielsen sometimes puts it better than I do. Okay, he rarely ever puts it better than I do, but he did this once. And it has to
Take
do, yeah, he better. It has to do with what he was saying about the R3, R4. We do have a lot of that. And in my opinion, especially after watching my neighbor put their house in the market, and I live in Pinewood Lakes, which is, I think, an R4. I didn't check when I moved here. I learned to check from now on. But, you know, there is no such thing as affordable starter home in R4. There just isn't. I mean, the amount they're asking for is, I couldn't buy it. I couldn't buy my own house now. So I understand the concept of wanting starter homes. I understand the concept of wanting to bring younger families in, but in all reality, when I was a younger family, we lived in R1 million in Virginia, and it was, and even then, it was, even then, it was hard. And so, it's true, some areas you need the higher density, but this one, it was at R2. I really think you're gonna bring a quality product. I don't think that's gonna be a concern. However, I really want to get back to, I strongly believe the density needs to be closer to the R3, if not below R3. And even if it is at R3, those 10-foot setbacks are a must for where this is located in our city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for everything you've presented so far.
All right, I'm going to ask a few questions, if you don't mind. Typically, I don't get involved too much, but I have to put my mayor hat on right now with everything that's going on with growth and construction
Yes.
in our city. The one thing that Councilman Hershey talked about was this affordable housing thing. There's no possible way that any of this is affordable anymore. We got to be honest. Houses are being sold for $500,000-$600,000. That's beyond the affordable side. But with that said, with this density, I have a concern on several fronts. I have a concern that our agencies aren't being completely honest with all of us right now, just based on meetings and stuff that we've had. And when I look at a couple things, the schools, this, you know, if you were to stick with the density that you have, it would add 96.6 children to our schools. And this is telling me Star Elementary is a role, you know, the report from Mercy Corner from West Data has an enrollment of 614 with a capacity of 650, Star Middle, 804 to 1,000. And all of our kids are going to go to a Waihee High School now from Star, which has plenty of capacity. So it doesn't tell me exactly how much we expect really to get in here, but we have like 3,000 or 4,000 platted lots that are not built yet, but we don't have a plan on how we're going to get my kids into school. The issue that I have right now is with the new attendance boundary with West Data, they're shipping some of my kids in the Eagle. And they clearly say it on here that development could affect the location of your kids going to school. I don't know how we're going to mitigate that between the development community, the cities, and the school districts. We've got to figure this out because it's a problem, right? The other issue, question, and I'm just going to shoot it all out at you and you can throw it right back, whatever.
No.
Okay. No. The other question I have is on your traffic impact study. What part of Floating Feather, how did they do the study with the Floating Feather? Is it on the current Floating Feather or the new alignment of Floating Feather? Because that's going to make two different, to me, that's two different things altogether. When you have to take a left and a right, you know, not a lot of traffic's going to go there. But once it gets punched through the Rosside development on the Highway 16, that's going to be a highly traveled corridor, right? And so you got to be able to sell, I don't get a vote unless there's a tie, but you got to be able, in my opinion, to sell us on what is the benefit of increasing a density on something that's already there when we're dealing with traffic concerns, when we're dealing with school children concerns, when we're dealing with possibly fire safety concerns, you know. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we have to, I mean, it's just not about your guys' development with our 3.38, I think is what you said, right?
Yes.
It's everything that's around that we've approved over the years that has to all commingle. And right now the plan is all based off of you being at an R2 already, right?
Understood.
So kind of sell me on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when I think, I don't know who asked to sell you. Somebody asked for you to sell them. I wouldn't have bought your car. I'm just going to tell you.
No, I understand.
You got to really sell me on why we should increase it. What is the benefit to the city and to our people in order to make that happen? Because I will tell you, the development to me looks nice. It does. I have no issue with that. It's what we're going to look at here in the future and what's going to happen.
Yes.
Because I will tell you, ACHD talks about the floating feather in the integrated 5-year work plan for 2021. I don't think that's correct. I think that's incorrect. I think they started the process with no construction for a couple of years down the road, right? Between now and then, we have a problem.
Yeah, no, understood. And, you know, all the comments you said are completely valid. I can't speak to whether or not you indicated, you started out saying you have concerns about these various agencies being forthright or honest with the city.
I think they're afraid.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think they are afraid because they don't seem to want to tell us what's really truly happening. That's my opinion. I can't speak for everybody up here. It's just the things that I have been seeing over the last couple months and last couple years. It's a concern to me.
Sure.
And we got to, in my opinion, we got to figure out how we can make this work between the development community, the cities, and these agencies truly work. So we're not hosing ourselves in the future and creating a problem we can't ever get out of. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I mean, with
Okay.
traffic, you know, the studies that are done, I'm not up here claiming I'm a traffic engineer, but I know they look at the existing, and I know they look at the cumulative model. And then I also know they also analyze, you know, they have trip distribution methodologies, and they also have an overall transportation plan. We are not opposed to what the city has imposed on us or what the agencies have imposed onto us as far as proportional mitigation. A development of 40 acres certainly can't fix or address all regional improvement items. But what we can do is we can be 100% committed and ensure that our proportionate share is paid and that we're not protesting that and that we do that. You know, and that's where the difficulty is. I understand exactly what you're saying we have concerns with the regional agencies and whether their plans are accurate and whether their growth projections are accurate or whether their infrastructure planning is accurate. What I can say is that we've done current analysis. We've done current analysis of our project, and our analysis looked at sort of, you know, what we originally proposed, which is the higher end of the zoning that we've proposed. So I can say from the data and the studies that are being done, we're doing and what's being requested of us is what is we're required to do, and we're not protesting that. Getting into understanding, you know, how do we handle this? How do we handle the amount of growth and the amount of platted lots that are coming? What we can say is we're not here to just plat something, and we're not here to build a cheap site plan. We're not here to do something. We want to make something special. We want to make something special for Star. We've endeavored, we're gonna do wonderful architecture. We're gonna go over and above on the site amenities. We're gonna do everything we can to cooperate with the neighbors and provide the connectivity. But yes, there will be an impact of this project like so many other projects. But we really think if we have the opportunity to build something here, which is completely up to the discretion of the city, it's gonna be really, really special and a wonderful project. I don't know if I answered your questions of whether or not the agencies are being forthright or correct. But what I can tell you is that we've done all the analysis. We trust our consultants, and we're not protesting or pushing back on any mitigation or conditions that have been applied to our project.
So can anybody on your team tell us if the floating feather was based off of the current location or the new location? Because I think that's going to make a total difference in how traffic is handled in this area.
And maybe I don't quite understand the question. Is the question about the revised alignment or?
The revised alignment, the new alignment where right now it's currently being cut through the Rosti development on the east end of Floating Feather before Highway 16. So it's going to go straight through to Highway 16.
Yes.
Currently, you take the left jog on Pollard and then you take a right on a Floating Feather and come down the hill to Highway 16.
Are you asking me is if our proportional payment was based
No,
on?
not your payment, your traffic study. Was your traffic study, when you're looking at traffic analysis of the travel on Floating Feather based off of the new alignment or the old alignment? You see what I'm saying? I mean, because in my opinion, it's going to be totally two
You're
different
talking about, yeah, what
traffic volume.
capacity assumptions were being made. I don't know.
I know, that's why I was, ask your staff if they know.
Okay. Let me get our.
She could come up and answer
Great.
that for you, because
Maybe do a better job than I am.
well, you're not the traffic guy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Chadwick, members of the council. I'm Bonnie Layton. I'm a senior planner with NV5. We're also the engineer on the project, as well as our traffic engineer did the traffic impact study for this. And to answer that question, the way that Mr. Beckman approached that, our engineer, is he did a preliminary scoping session with ACHD and input from ITD, and it looks at future development of that area and those improvements. And so we did that scoping up front to make sure that we were capturing everything and not leaving anything out. And so we went ahead and did that analysis, submitted it to them. Of course, there's also input from Compass, and there's classifications of the roads. I know there was, oh gosh, this was, Sean helped me out, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was a pretty comprehensive study and plan done for Floating Feather in this whole area. And actually, Mr. Beckman, our traffic engineer, was part of that document. You can find it online as well. So what they do is they look at the impact. Now, there was a question from our client. Since we submitted, we've reduced the number of lots. And so the proportional share will be a little bit different than what was initially looked at, but that's typically handled as we go through the project and, depending on the approval and number of lots. So, but it does look at what those future improvements are and what they're slated to be. So I hope that answers your question,
Kind of.
kind of.
So the question, so she's asking, was it yes, was it included? Or
Yes,
no? So,
yes.
so they included, so they did their study based on that being open and not running traffic down the old Floating Feather, that they're going to cul-de-sac.
I believe so. They look at the long-term, I wasn't in those discussions, but they look at the long-term plan for that. And so that's where
Hey,
we,
guys, I need everybody to be quiet in the audience for us, please, because otherwise the recording's going to pick you up and not what's going on here. Thank you. Go ahead.
so that's where we were determined what improvements, taking some of those long-range plans into account. So,
Okay, thank you. All right, any further questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys?
so I'm looking at the appendix in the TIS, and it looks like they were taking actual traffic counts. And if they were doing that, it wouldn't have been through the realignment, I wouldn't think. Would that be accurate with those that they collected, they did
Mayor
actual
Chadwick
counts?
and Councilman Keys. So they look at the actual traffic counts, but then there's predictions. So it's a little bit of a science, and we do these all over the country. So it's, they look at what's existing, then they take on what's predicted for the project to generate, and try to evaluate the traffic patterns that way, and try to look at what the future plans are, if there's a signal plan or straightening or a road alignment or a punch through, how that would work. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Mayor
And then,
Chadwick.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify,
Okay, Councilman Keys?
in the integrated five-year work plan, what they're talking about is putting some sidewalks along the north side of Floating Feather. They're not
Right.
talking about widening Floating Feather
Correct, sorry.
lanes
Yeah,
until the 2036 to 2040 timeframe.
correct. So that's where we run into a challenge, right? Okay, Councilman Nielsen, sorry.
No, thank you.
It's like going through my kids. Through a list.
Sometimes we behave like them too.
That's right.
Thank you. So listening to this dialogue, I think I guess I want to put my own explanation on a couple of these things. I wouldn't categorize our partner agencies as not being honest with us. I guess I don't know that they aren't, but I think that, I think they don't have all the information, quite honestly. And, you know, as a case in point, we, you know, as a council, we met with ACHD here very recently in the last 10 days. And I know that the population numbers that they have for us are not correct. The population numbers that Compass has for us are not correct. And so I think part of the dialogue, and this is important for our, you know, our citizens to understand here, part of the dialogue here tonight isn't necessarily about, well, are you guys going to pay us our proportionate share? You know, that's, in my mind, that's not even a consideration. There's a formula that's going to take care of that. It's about, we know that our population numbers are different than the population numbers that are used for your traffic study, than the population numbers that are used for you know, future density calculations and build out scenarios and conditions and things like that. And quite honestly, it was really sobering for me personally as we met with ACHD and to hear them talk about what their projections are for 100 years from now. And their ask of us as the city is, you guys are going to have to go back and plan differently. Because if we don't plan differently, then the conditions in our traffic grid aren't going to be that great, you know, 100 years from now. And that's what we have to take into consideration here today. It's not just about, you know, your 40-acre parcel. You're right, it's a drop in the bucket, right? We can't pin all of that on you, but it's an important discussion for us to have here tonight. And it's really important for us to try to weigh all of these different pieces of information in order to make the best decision that we possibly can. And right now, those are very difficult decisions to make. And quite honestly, it's pretty daunting to try to think that what this council does here tonight, you know, and what we've been doing, it affects our kids and our grandkids and people for generations to come. And so I guess that's my explanation of where Mayor Chadwick might be coming from, and I know where I'm coming from. So
Yes, thank you. So we're gonna go back to traffic here just for a minute on your study. Sorry. This is a hang up for me because we've been fighting this battle for quite some time, right? So on your study, the level of service, this is on page 14, on table 7, level of service intersections 2025 background volumes. Right now it says that the eastbound and westbound Floating Feather and Highway 16 will operate at a service level of F. Right? That's concerning. Their mitigation is to put a traffic signal at Floating Feather and Highway 16. That's the mitigation proposal. However, ITD wants nothing to do with the traffic signal on Highway 16 and 44. I'm sorry, not 44. Highway 16 and Floating Feather. So that to me concerns me if we increase the potential traffic going out there without a real solution. The solution that we came up with the Rosti Farms project is with the overpass with the on and off ramps. However, our sister city, Eagle, is not in support of that. And they're not even planning for that right now, correct? They want us, we all would love to have a signal on that, but ITD will not bite on that. We can't get them to do that. So how do we mitigate that and fix that if we can't get a signal? I'm trying to figure that out, right? I mean, if we're going to build this new segment of roadway, it's just going to take more traffic. And I think it's just going to, if it says what Councilman Key said, with those traffic counts off of the old one, I can't even imagine what the new one's going to be like when people want to bypass this nightmare out here at 4:30 in the afternoon and at 8 in the morning and head down and hit Highway 16. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to look at this logic. I'm trying to figure out how we can make this work logically without setting ourselves up for complete failure in the future.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. And, you know, and understanding that, you know, everywhere regional transportation is an issue. I do completely understand that development of this project will have further additional impact to this. I understand what the mitigation measure is, but I also understand that we're in a tough spot, the city's in a tough spot, and other cities are in a tough spot because it really comes down to what the Regional Transportation Authority will allow. So your comments are not lost on me. I understand them. There is a limitation, not only for what we can do, but also what cities can do. And I just fully appreciate it and understand it.
Okay. Any further comments or questions of the applicant?
No, sir.
Thank
None?
you very much.
Before we move on,
Thank you.
you can go take some darts out of you now for a minute. So, all right. So we're going to move on to public testimony here. Got quite a few pages. If I butcher your name, I'm going to apologize up front, okay? Non-intentional.
Hey, Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen.
can I just say as we head into public testimony that, you know, because we have so many, I think most of us would like to see this move along. We understand a lot of concerns about traffic and things like that. And so I would just ask you if you hear somebody say something that you're planning to say, we don't necessarily have to repeat it. I want to hear what everybody has to say. I really do. But we don't need a lot of repetition. And hopefully what you've heard up here tonight is that we have a lot of the same concerns that you guys do. And so those comments won't be lost on us.
Okay. So we're going to start, and remember, you got 3 minutes. However, I got I think it's, no, I'm going to try. I'm going to have that's true. You were a Marine. That's right. I was Army. So that doesn't help anybody. So I'm going to have Miss Caitlin Bartles. And I believe you represent 3 people. And this is yours, right? I just want to make sure that one.
Yes.
Okay.
And
So
it
let
should
me
only
pull
be
this
one
up.
there. And a little shorter.
So give me just a second here.
And then I don't.
So Ms. Bartle, since you represent, well, you get like 6 minutes.
10.
Want to speak that long?
I thought I got 10. I printed off on the website where it says 10.
I'm changing your rules. You're an
Oh.
attorney. No, I'm kidding. You get 10. Yes. See, sometimes you have to play the cards and see if they agree.
Yeah.
right? Okay, so you got 10 minutes, ma'am. So the floor is yours.
Okay, so yeah, as you stated, my name's Caitlin Bartles, and I'm of the firm Brian Webb Legal. He couldn't make it here today. He gave me bad jokes to tell them, and I'm not going to tell them. I'm going to spare you guys. And I'm here representing 3 different homeowners. And I kind of want to talk about some of the legal concerns here. It's not, sorry, I got there. You guys getting me nervous.
Go ahead and tell some of his jokes. I've heard them.
I know they were so bad. I didn't even write them down. But I'm just here to kind of talk about some of like the legal deficiencies that I felt were in the application and some of the concerns. Like I think as you guys voiced too, you know, I'm not here to scream no development, no development. That's not what the people I'm representing want. They just want to talk about issues that there are with it. You know, I'm not here to tell you to, no, we're not building anything, go kick rocks. We're going to build stuff. It's going to grow. But I think as you guys previewed, you got to do it on the right terms. So with that here, I just kind of looked at the code and kind of the requirements for the preliminary plat. And there were a few things that just seemed to be missing from it. The first one with the requirement in order to approve of this preliminary plat was for it to be in conform with the comprehensive plan. You know, in the comprehensive plan here, you know, it encourages lands use that are in harmony with existing resources and surrounding land uses, and that's section 8.4. So the city needs to find, and this is in the application itself, that the plat follows the designation, spirit, and intent of the comprehensive plan regarding residential development and meets some of those. And some of those are that the development minimizes impacts on the adjacent properties. And I think that we went over, there's going to be a lot of impact on the adjacent properties, and that I'll get into further when we go there. This, as you've said, this development greatly exceeds the surrounding housing density, so it's going to have a huge effect. It also, part of that requirement is the comprehensive plan, you need to support a well-planned pedestrian-friendly developments. And we'll kind of get into some of the safety concerns. And some of mine where I know we focused a lot on the intersections, which are very important, it's 2 state highways, but we haven't really touched on the traffic concerns within the neighborhood. So you saw on the first presentation, you'll see here, there's only one exit to Floating Feather Road. All 4 other exits are through existing neighborhoods. And that's just a huge concern, especially with that higher density, because not only is it's not 80 homes. I don't know, everybody here probably has at least 2 cars. Growing up, we had 7 and 5 family members, sometimes 8. And so at times, there's going to be a huge difference between 136 homes with 2 cars each compared to the 80 with 2 cars each. And so I did see that they were going to comply. They said, yeah, we'll comply with the safety recommendations and the staff report. But the issue is they didn't list any. So, what are those recommendations? Is it going to be another median like the front entrance? Is it going to be, like, I think bollards, the ones that go up, are they going to be blocking? Are they going to be blocked at certain times? In order to kind of pass the preliminary plat, like you guys have said, we need to see what is actually going to happen, not just, oh, okay, we'll mitigate it. Because when you put stuff in like that, it's going to have a huge effect on what those plats look like. Also, this one we kind of got into too, in order to approve the preliminary plat, you need public services have to be available and they have to be adequate. And one of the issues I found with the application was it didn't seem to have a letter from the water and sewer district contained in there. I actually don't know if maybe online doesn't have the most recent updated one, because you'll notice in here, it didn't have Idaho Transportation Department's report in it, but I know Councilman Keys said that he's seen it, so clearly they've had it, but
It came out today. Did we get it today? Huh? Yeah, or it came out Friday. Yeah.
and so yeah, just I didn't know, maybe, I mean, I can't really ask you questions, but it's really important that we get that will-serve sewer and water district and make sure it is well-written, not just, the preliminary plat says, oh, we're going to get it from Star. You need to know what you're getting it, where you're getting it. And that's something I think is really, really important with all the growth that's going on. We need to know that it can be supported. And some of the other departments that were missing in that as well was the police and fire. And this is a huge concern to me because of the next one that I put here. It's, will they be able to financially support the services? There wasn't proof from those. And I agree with you that, the agencies, state agencies probably aren't purposely misrepresenting, but they might be undercounting. It might be outdated to how we're growing. And then I think you guys are probably well aware, as a small town, of the House bill, I think 389 House bill. So all these new improvements, you're not going to get full revenue on. You're going to get either 80 or 90%. So in addition to not knowing what the budget for the services for this increased thing, your budget analysis is different. And I'm sure you guys have had problems with that and trying to figure out how you're going to do that. But so not only are you adding, you're having to deal with a deficit to support those fire department, police department, and pay for it. Then this last one, it talks about, the development must not be detrimental to public health, safety, or general welfare. I mean, that's kind of like a harsh word, detrimental, but there are definitely impacts. So that Compass report, in the packet right there, the proposed development, it's deficient in 4 out of those 5 categories. You'll see the pedestrian level of stress, it's R, it should be P or PG. You'll see the housing to job ratio is 0.2 when it needs to be somewhere between 1 and 1.5. Police and fire, not too concerning. It's only 1.1 and 0.2 miles away from the suggested area. But again, you combine that with more funding. And I know that there's been a lot of other developments. You guys probably followed, Dry Creek Ranch and all the issues they had with trying to expand and not having the proper funding for that. And then kind of the length of the subdivision road. So that I think the report does mention they want traffic calming in a handful of roads. And again, like I said, it's fundamental to the preliminary plot process because it's going to affect it's going to affect those ones on those long straightaways. It's going to affect the road, the distances, and all of the code that they need to follow. So I think it's really something that should be included before it gets approved, even on a preliminary basis. Also, kind of touching on the concerns of the traffic a little bit. The location of the lake was a little bit concerning too, because what it does is it creates the majority of the density of the housing towards the inner part of where it's located. So you'll see there, and I know it's a little light, so you can't really see as much on the screen. But so you'll see most of those people will be exiting through the neighborhoods. And that issue too is, we can't really address traffic calming in already established neighborhoods. We can already do it in one. And I know Mr. Mayor talked a little bit earlier, people are going to be speeding through, going to Highway 16. Well, they're also going to be speeding through the neighborhood because we've all done that, whether you want to admit it or not. So that's kind of an issue there. Also, this graphic was up here because it just has the total amount of homes per acre. And you'll see, because we can classify it as R2, R3, R4, all we want, but when it comes down to just reality and how it is, there's 2.4 homes per acre, 1.9, 2.4, 2.0, and then jump all the way up to 3.4. And that's a huge difference. And then the next slide too.
You got the, oh, well. here,
I
I'll
do
just-
have it. Oh,
I'll just, well,
oh, darn it.
we're fighting each other now. Go ahead.
My money's on it.
Okay, you got a minute left, Miss Caitlin.
Yeah, this is the other side of floating feather here too. And you'll see it's 0.8, 1.9, 2.3. So it's just very different from not only like a code perspective, but from just looking at it as it is. And then on the back too, I'll just skip over the lack of Idaho Transportation Department, but it wasn't in the application. So it is concerning because when I was able to find it, it's $90,000 to the proportionate share. So, like where is that going to be taken from and when? Again, there's also no phases of development. So I know they touched that they were going to do
Give about 20
phases,
seconds.
but, what are those? And then the last one is there's no other analysis to pending applications. The presentation here, today you proved a final plat for another neighborhood that's just right up the street. So I didn't really see an analysis comparing them.
Okay, time's up. That was a good, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Miss Caitlin? No? Okay. Deanna Johnson. Just state your name and address, please,
Okay,
for the record.
My name is Deanna Johnson. I live at 1345 North Glen Aspen Avenue in Star.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, first I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening about the Cherished Estates project. I am actually here this evening to ask you to make a motion to deny the rezone application that has been submitted by the developer. And I want to be clear, I'm fine with development. I'm pro-development. And I'm happy to have this piece of property be developed at the current zoning designation of R2. That's what I would have expected when we moved into the community next door. We knew that was an R2 designation. We knew that our community was developed towards that as well. And we felt very comfortable going into that community knowing it was designated at R2. And I would support that. What this developer is proposing is really grossly out of scale with the surrounding communities. This is very clear when shown on the map that I submitted. Now it's a little bit higher density because they've taken a few homes out, but that was submitted with my letter. The average density in the immediate surrounding neighborhoods is closer to 1.99 units per acre. The average lot size is around maybe 12,000 to 14,000 square feet. And the proposed project exceeds the surrounding land use density by around 50%. And the average lot size is about 60% smaller. As we've been told, the project is connected to the surrounding communities at 3 locations, which is why it is particularly important to keep the zoning at R2. From a land use and planning perspective, Higher density areas should not be permitted to be connected by vehicular traffic of lower density areas. It just doesn't make sense to have all of that traffic coming through a lower density area. As we mentioned before, I'll try not to be too repetitive, but there is the concern about the schools and having children bused out of the community that they think their children are going to be attending their local schools at. There's that issue of the dramatic number of new vehicle trips per day, over 1,500. So I just want to do this about the comprehensive plan survey that was out. The number one issue in the public comment section of that comprehensive plan survey overwhelmingly was basically too many vehicles for the current road's level of service, meaning the infrastructure is not keeping up with the growth. And this was followed closely by a desire to keep the rural feel of the city. Residents have made it abundantly clear that infrastructure needs to be promoted over density. Just a density thing on the map that they had. I do have a question for the developer, and it's regarding this map. And it is about block 6, lots 3, 10, and 19. I'm just not sure what those lots are, and I want to know if they're actually labeled to be developed at a future time.
Okay, you got 10 seconds.
And they should be permanently designated. As we said, rezoning is discretionary in Idaho. Owners don't have a statutory property right to be granted. And I just want to say once again, I am asking you to make a motion to deny the
Okay,
rezone
time's up.
application. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. We got Mr. Greg Lively. Sorry. Lively.
I hope you appreciate I wore a tie today. My name's Greg Lively and I live in Lake Point at 10232 West Schumer Drive. Honorable Mayor Chadwick and council members Nielsen, Samonson, Keys, and Hershey. It is my fervent wish and prayer that you would administer and legislate our city's issues with great wisdom and insight. I pray for you to fully understand the consequences for Star brought about by your decisions. We are the citizens of Star, have invested hugely in Star in time and assets. You all have been elected to protect our investments. To do so, we have put a sword and a shield in your hand. You stand in the gate. You have been appointed to keep out the wolves from ravaging the flock. You possess the most powerful weapon, the word no. If a development does not minimize its impact on existing adjacent properties, I feel you should say no. Cherished Estates has significantly higher densities than all surrounding neighborhoods. This adversely affects traffic and child safety. I think you should say no. Here's a map showing the different amounts of homes.
So hang on, before you don't, I would say stuff up there because we got to get it on the recording. We won't hear you over here.
Cherished Estates has a park near Floating Feather with its major access road running through the middle of it. And it's very close to the traffic that's going to be flying off of Floating Feather. This is a safety hazard to children playing in the park and crossing busy streets to get to and from it. I feel you must say no to that. By saying yes too often, you dilute your authority. If you always say yes, then what's the point of having a government? You lose your authority. Saying yes too many times to developers is like throwing chum in the ocean. The developers start to swarm like sharks. Now, I have nothing against developers. They have the right to provide housing and make a profit. It's capitalism. But you must, and I quote, minimize its impact on existing adjacent properties. To minimize its impact on existing adjacent properties, Cherished Estates needs to reduce the density below 100 homes on their 40 acres. There are 4 other developments around it on 40 acres.
You got about 15 seconds.
Lake Point has 81, Rockbridge 97, Waterview 92, Claymont 76. Their development has 55 more homes than my development. To take 55 homes and cram it in amongst the 81 homes that we have would just be a travesty. I can't imagine that being decent.
Mr. Lively, time's up.
Okay, thanks for your time. May God bless each of you with a great discernment and
Mayor
sound
Chadwick.
judgment.
Hey, sir,
And may your names
real
be
quick,
blessed.
did you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
you have a question. Please stay.
Mr. Lively, first of all, I want to say that, this body of folks up here, we are elected to apply the law. Now, if the law happens to preserve your property value, and I hope it does, that's great. But that's
Yeah.
what we're elected to do.
Yeah,
Secondly, we've heard here tonight a couple of times mentioned that we're supposed to prevent, negative impacts or minimize impacts, I guess is the term you used. But nobody's identified what those impacts are. So this is a hearing. We need facts. What are the impacts that you feel should be addressed under this?
well, the connecting road connects to Schumerd, and I live at Schumerd and Rook. And all that traffic, the way they've designed it with all the, like it had been mentioned previously, most of the units down to the south, they're gonna flow out Schumerd and through ours, and we're much less dense. Right now, we see hardly any cars going through. Very quickly, we're gonna see all these multiple trips of
I'm not
families.
familiar with that road. Is that a private road or is that a public
Well,
road?
Schumerd runs through our development, and they're gonna connect Schumerd to their development. So I
Is that
guess,
a private road or a public road?
I think it's a public road.
Okay. Is it labeled today? Is it this road may be extended in the future?
Yes. Yes, it is. But it's R2. When we bought our house, it was R2, and now they want to make it R3.4.
We understand that ACHD has roads constructed to handle a certain capacity, not necessarily a certain density of a neighboring, subdivision or, all of those densities have to be taken into consideration.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but putting 3.4 in the middle of a 1.9, that,
Is that your opinion or
well,
I'm
it's
not-
a
I'm not trying to
fact.
be a jerk to you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand.
It's a fact. They want to put a high density thing in the middle of low density.
R4
areas.
is not high density. So I'm trying to understand what is the impact? Is there a number?
You take my neighborhood and you cram 55 more
Are
houses
we
into it, it would be
exceeding a limit
unbearable.
of that road?
What's
Are
that?
we exceeding the limit of the road?
Well, right now, we hardly, we don't have to put up with a lot of traffic going through, but with that many houses, making that many trips that have been computed out, it would flood our streets. They'll look up there to go, oh, I'm not going, the way the roads are, about 70% of the houses are going to go out Schumerd. And then they'll go to Rook and they'll see, oh, Rook's backed up. Now I'll go over to Hornback. And so Schumerd's just going to be,
So the concern
Crammed.
then is the design of the roadway network within this subdivision going out is how I take that.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand, but
And it would be
again,
nice if they moved the park to the south and moved most of the homes to the north, so they'd use their own exit instead of using our neighborhood. That's a concern,
Yeah,
because the quality of life would be definitely impacted.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Will you, did you give this to the applicant by chance, a copy of that? Have you done that? I'm gonna have you give that to them right over there, please. Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Mel Fleener, so you were on here twice. The first one that says would like to speak and this other box was not. You do want to speak though, correct? Okay.
My name is Mel Fleener. I live at
Oh, hang on a second. You gotta make sure we're in the microphone.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Mel Fleener. I live at 10374 West Floating Feather, approximately 70 feet from the proposed development. First off, I'd like to thank City Council for the incredible fireworks. You get a well done. I vehemently oppose a trailer park, less wheels being next to my house. You can hold up the plot of lake and the plot of this, and it looks like a trailer park. I'm sorry. It's just far too dense. I have trouble now getting in and out of my driveway. When I first moved there, I averaged about 1.4 cars a minute. Now it's up to about 4, except during rush hour, it's about 9. If you dump another 1,600 trips in there, I'm basically held captive until 10 or 11 o'clock, and I have to be back by 2. This impacts me horribly. It shows that there's a right turn lane on Plummer. There is not. If you paid for it, you need to go get the money back, because there's a large telephone pole there and a stoplight. You cannot turn right. Right now, it's not uncommon to have 4 or 5 cars left at that signal. When this starts going on, it's going to be 8 and 10 cars unless you make the signal like on Highway 20 and Star, which is basically a 4-minute light. Everyone hates getting stuck at that light. You're going to have to do something on the traffic. The thing of floating feather going through chills my blood. It just, when I bought it, floating feathers jogged, so it really wasn't used that much. It just was a nice, I live on floating feather, which is a pretty name. Now it's going to be a horror. You know, as far as density, I didn't want to live in Boise because it was too dense. I didn't look in Boise. I moved to Star for its very unique atmosphere. Star is overtaking Eagle as the desirable place to live. It used to be if you live in Eagle, you had made it. Now, if you live in Star, you've made it. You start allowing densities like this, and it's just going to take this incredible, wonderful community and turn it into Boise, which I don't want to live in Boise. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Miss Gina Mulhern.
I'm Gina Mulhern. I live at 10189 West Shumard in Star in Lake Point. Now is the time for the city of Star to decide how we want the future of our town, and most especially the 40 acres we are all here for, to how are they going to look and what it's going to be like. Decisions will be made that will affect the current residents and homeowners of Star regarding water, sewer, power, schools, roads, and traffic infrastructure for a long time. These decisions affect our very way of everyday life. The Cherished Estates proposal is not in harmony with the surrounding neighborhoods, both on density and build. Since this project connects to existing neighborhoods, it is particularly important that the Cherished Estates higher density traffic should not be permitted to flow through the lower density neighborhoods. Therefore, the rezone request should be denied. In a recent May 27th, 2021 meeting with Sterling Builders Jim, Z Zubliga, he stated he could just as easily build larger homes with larger lots and still come out ahead. I see this as a win-win. The seller sells, the builder builds, and all of these voters here who wrote letters, sent emails, and came out here tonight will have their voices heard. I recently learned the city is particularly impressed with the aesthetics of the entrance to the proposed Cherished Estates off Floating Feather. What assurances does the city require from Sterling Builders or any builder developer that their entrance, and for that matter, everything in their project, will in the end look as depicted? And what recourse exists if Sterling does not perform as promised? That's it. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, thank you. Okay, Mr. Rick Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor Chadwick, council members. My name is Rick Anderson. My wife and I, Sue, who's going to give you some pieces of paper here. We live at 10205 West Golden Rain Street in the Lake Point subdivision. And I'm here tonight to present you these 7 pages of signatures from citizens of Star who are asking you not to approve the changes requested by the developer. We understand and support the addition of homes at an R2 level. And as you've heard, it is the density that we oppose in the strongest terms. In addition to the signatures that we are presenting to you tonight, we've walked the subdivisions around the development, both north and south of Floating Feather. We've knocked on hundreds of doors, literally, at this point. And I can tell you comfortably and confidently that every single homeowner that we talked to and that we had the opportunity to talk to said that they agreed with us and that this new development should go in, but it should reflect the density of those neighborhoods around them. So you've already heard a lot of reasons, and I'm sure you'll hear more about why this is important to us. I want to add a note about traffic, if I might. you can look at a lot of things in numbers and studies. One of the things that we hope that you will do is, as people representing us, also look at exactly where this is going in. It is going in right next to a skate park, down the street from an elementary school, and basically in between an elementary school and a middle school that has challenges already with traffic patterns and getting students there safely. So we are, our request is to respectfully ask that you honor this important request from hundreds of your citizens who are counting on you to manage our growth in a way that reflects our shared values and concerns. I believe that the ladies and gentlemen sitting behind me, the developers, are good people. And they put together a plan that they really believe makes sense. And I think it actually does, just in a different place. There's nothing wrong with them or their plan, just on a different 40-acre lot. And if they can come up with a great plan on that's R2, I would love to see that with walking paths and all the things that we need. So we are asking at this point that you deny this request of the developer, and we do thank you for your time and for your service to our community.
Mayor Chadwick,
Mr. Anderson, hang on one second. I think Councilman Nielsen has a question.
thank you.
Yes,
You
sir.
mentioned that there's difficulties today getting students to schools safely. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I have concerns. We've talked about and heard that and understand that it is difficult to get on foot or on bicycle to Star Middle School without going down Floating Feather right now. And Floating Feather's traffic at the moment is not that bad, but you've talked about the traffic study and what will happen with vehicular traffic in the future. And I just don't know, because I'm not in your seat. I haven't looked at all of the studies. I don't know what that means for the children who will be both in the subdivision presently where I am. I have 3 small children that live right next door to me, or what it would mean for the families that move into the proposed subdivision. So I have real serious concerns about how that might play out in the future from a safety perspective.
Thank you. I appreciate elaborating on that. Not that this matters here tonight, but we'll just say on that particular concern, when the Star Middle School when West Ada was here making that proposal, we had quite an extensive discussion about that, in fact, and that's the reason that every student is given the bus to school option there. I'm not suggesting here that doesn't mean we don't have kids walking and biking and that's not a safety concern, but that is the West Ada mitigating factor. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. And we would hope that all of our children would have the opportunity, should they choose, to walk to school or bike to school if they're in that proximity.
Mr. Anderson, will you give this copy to the applicant, please? On
Happy to do so.
Thank you, sir. Okay. On to, let's see, Mr. Robert Trott.
Board and member, thank you for this time. I'm Robert Trott. I live at 1388 North Glen Aspen Avenue, a 40-acre community with about 80 homes. And now I'm looking at a community that's going to go 50% higher than that. Some of the concerns I have with this, as an example, they make a statement that they want to connect with our walking paths. We don't want them on our walking paths. We don't want another 300 or 400 people walking on our paths. Did they ask any of us if we could do that? No. Well, we're having a meeting on Thursday. Maybe you could present it then. Secondly, Floating Feather, I think, is already a planning issue that needs to be addressed, not just for this community, not just for this subdivision, but for all of them. You've got people walking, you've got kids on e-bikes and scooters, you've got a lot of people riding road bikes and mountain bikes. There's no bike paths. There's no safety involved. Sooner or later, someone's going to get injured or killed because that consideration was not made when these developments were put in. Secondly, I think if this community is going to exist, they need 2 roads exiting on Floating Feather so they don't affect the other communities. And that's all I've got, unless there's any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay. Let's see, Miss Kathy Saylor.
I just want to say that I'm opposed to this project.
So you don't want to, I mean, you checked that you're opposed. Okay, thank you. Okay. Let's see, Lynn Phillips.
Thank you and good evening. You've heard a lot of opposition and you asked not to repeat so that we have time for everyone else. When I walked into this room, I saw this whole division. When we bought into Star R2, that was one of the main reasons why we bought into Lake Point. And we would like to see that the development next to us remain in R2 as it was proposed. That's the vision. And I
Oh.
look to the council to.
I need your address.
Oh, I'm so
Sorry,
sorry.
and name.
No, I'm anonymous. You don't need me. Most of them know me and no, I'm sorry. Lynn Phillips, 1510 North Rook, Star, Idaho. Infamous Lake Point. Most of you guys know Lake Point by now. So anyway, I'm just asking to hold the vision. We do not approve of the change from an R2 to an R4. And we look to you to stay with the long growth plan. We also have a question. I don't know if we're allowed to ask questions, but if we could bring this up so that the developer could address
Ask the
that.
question and they'll address it in the rebuttal.
Okay.
So you can just speak right into the microphone.
Okay, so, some of the problems we had at Lake Point was drainage. And from the developer that developed our subdivision. So the question is, there's concern about water problems, drainage from Cherished Estates, possibly impacting Lake Point. Want to know if anything has been thought about of that? I'm told to talk to the mic, has anything been discussed from Cherished Estates about maintaining any kind of water drainage in your development and not impacting our development?
They'll answer when they come back up.
Oh, they get to come back up?
You won't get the immediate response
All right.
right now.
Am I good now to go? No, I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Phillips.
Well, that was my wife.
So you got to come up here and speak. Well, you don't have to speak, but you got to come to the microphone if you're going to make a statement after you state your name and address.
Steve Phillips, 1510 North Rook. Pardon me? No. Yeah, you know what my wife said, there's not anybody that wants anything but R2. The traffic there is ungodly. We look out at this beautiful, beautiful cornfield now, and I hate to see a bunch of 2-stories and houses packed in there. So that's about my feeling, and a lot of us feel the same way. So if you could keep it at R2, how much time do I have?
You still got 2.5 minutes, but it just makes it stay longer.
If you could just keep it at R2, we knew that when we moved in to Lake Point, and that was R2. To change it now, I don't know. I just goes against my core because I pretty much knew it was R2 right there at Cherished Estates or whatever it's called. So anyway, I guess I'm a little nervous here. That's about all I have to say. Thanks for your time.
All right.
Mayor, consider this now. I'm a voter.
I think everybody's a voter. So we got, I'm going to butcher this and I'm going to apologize. I think it's Liz Brooks. I did? Good. Thank you. So do me a favor, if you don't mind, and just spell your last name too when you give your address so I can make sure it's right on here.
Okay, my name is Liz Brooks, 10190 West Shumard Drive, and it's BRUCKS.
Okay, thank you.
My husband Jerry and I moved into our neighborhood and we absolutely loved it. We were worried about Floating Feather, but it hasn't been a problem because we look out onto Floating Feather. We are extremely opposed to the large amount of the proposed homes in cherished estates. And if it's approved, you go towards R4, this is gonna set a precedent because you can see on the other side of this paper that you guys handed out, all these other places that are these subdivisions. And it's really worrisome because if you approve this huge amount now, all of them are gonna jump on the bandwagon and all wanna be R4. We love Star, we love the way it feels. That's what brought us here. We originally thought we'd be in Eagle, and Eagle was just way too busy. We came out to Star and we absolutely loved it. We love the way the whole town feels. And we really, like Lynn said, we hope and pray that you hold the vision and stick to your guns and keep Star the wonderful place that it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's see, I got Mr. Kevin Mullern.
My name is Kevin Mullern and I live at 10189 Shumar Street. And I'm against cherished estates. And yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you for the fireworks on 4th of July too. That's what I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see, we got, Mr. Jim Cheney. Sure. How about Miss Jana? Okay, so she won't be speaking, okay. Mr. Dennis Wells.
My name is Dennis Wells. I live at 10355 West Shumard. I'm going to come from a little different perspective. We moved there.
Hold on just a second. Can we have him use your microphone there, Sean, so he doesn't?
Oh, gotcha. Okay, understood. Go ahead, sir.
When I and my wife moved in about 1.5 years ago, we were selected by the then developer to be on the transition committee to represent the homeowners to the developer. And at that time, Ryan and Sean and I and the rest of the transition committee walked around that development 47 times and counted all the broken sprinklers and broken pipes and dead trees and all that kind of good stuff. And we met with the developer and he told us that he was not going to do one more thing. He was wiping his hands of the whole project. And then we went to the city asking for their help. And we found out that an egregious error had been made by the previous administration, and they had given the developer his $300,000 bond back to him, and that we then had absolutely no power to do anything against that developer. And it has been nothing but an arm wrestling contest until finally the project was turned over to us, the homeowners. So the reason I say and bring all that up is now the city has a chance to maybe make up for that egregious mistake that they made and left Lake Point in just a mess of dealing with a developer who wouldn't do a darn thing to help us and do what I call the right thing. So now you have an opportunity to stop a development next to us that could be bringing 300 cars a day, twice a day, in and out of that development, right down Shumard on the street I live on. And that is just totally not acceptable. And I hope the city sees that, and this is their way of finally making it right, do the right thing for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Jim, do you want to, is that working right now? Go ahead and speak.
I think this works great. Thank you
There
very
you
much
go.
for your consideration. My name is Jim Cheney. I live at 10664 West Wild Iris Street, and this is in my backyard. I look right now at that beautiful weed field. And I'm going to give my prepared remarks to the minutes. And I can give a copy as well to the applicant, because almost everything I wanted to bring up has been said. I would like to tell you, though, that I was born and raised in Nampa, and I lived on about an acre of land, and my parents taught me how to weed a garden, trim rose bushes, prune shrubs, and all those things that I tell my wife I can't do now. I guess this is public record. I'm now in trouble. But there's a myth going on right now that people don't want to have a yard. And I would submit that that's because most of them are moving in here, have never had one. And they don't know the value of what a yard can bring to a family. And they want the way of life that we have in Idaho, and hard work and outdoors and those kinds of things. There's some of the things that we represent being from Idaho. Now, it's not our responsibility to teach them, but we now have an opportunity. We at least give some of them the opportunity to have a yard and keep this at R2. If we continue with high density that's requested, that's just not going to happen. Our master plan also states that residents need to have a diverse choice of housing. You've brought up already that many houses or many developments have higher density, and we have very few R2 left. So please keep this that way. City plan also states that it shall not be approved if it's materially detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, and shall result in an adverse impact upon delivery of services. Yesterday, I was informed that our irrigation water is going to shut off in August. That's Waterview Estates and probably everybody. We live in high mountain desert. We are used to droughts. Idaho has droughts. We don't get any rain in July. That just is the way it is. We shouldn't be surprised when we don't have water. Now, I know water and sewer says, oh yes, we can handle it, but at what cost? Are we gonna have next year where we don't have any water in July? I know that we have to save our water for drinking, and we have to save our water for irrigation and farmlands. I have property in Boise County, and I have 2 wells on it. And 2 weeks ago, one of those wells went dry. It's going to happen. It can happen. And we have an opportunity as a city council to look in the future and prepare ourselves a little bit better for some of the things that happen.
About 15 seconds, sir.
That's good then. Thank you. I would like to thank, with my 15 seconds, Sterling Construction. I've looked at how they started and where they are today, and I actually think that they're going to build a fabulous subdivision within the parameters that I hope we can keep at R2. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys.
Mr. Cheney, I read the letter that you'd sent to the city a while ago. In fact, I read all the letters, and it took a minute. Okay, there were a lot of letters. So, but one of the things that you mentioned in your letters, you had a series of concerns. And I wanted to ask you specifically about concern number 2 that had to do with what you characterized as censorship in the meeting that the developers had with the neighborhood. Can you talk about that a little bit? And I'd actually like the developer to respond to that when they.
Absolutely. I felt for a long time that they had not met the responsibility to hold a neighborhood meeting, because the only one that we had was really during COVID, when people didn't feel comfortable about going out. And the only way that we could submit questions was through the comments. There was not a live Zoom conversation back and forth. And I use the word censorship because I'd ask a question that was kind of controversial to the representatives of Sterling, in that, pointing out that this was zoned as R2 and would it require zoning change. And the individual started reading the question that I had asked, got to the point where it started to become controversial, and said, we'll address that later, and didn't answer the rest of it. So I felt like my voice was cut short and that they hadn't met that requirement. I do feel now with the individual meetings they've had inside of homes that they've really reached out to the community and listened to us, and this is evident. I would have liked to have seen this as a good starting point. And by the way you can get to is connect your far right-hand corner to that little street that's already there. Take out that one lot, so you can get on a Floating Feather real easily there and not cut through the subdivision. Because by the way, that's how I'm going to go out to Floating Feather.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney.
Thank you.
We do
All
take
right.
the neighborhood meetings very seriously, so I'm glad that was addressed.
Okay. Miss Phyllis Wells. Did you want to speak? No. Nope. Okay. Got it. Thank you. So you're aware we're down one page. 5. But not everybody wishes to speak, so we're good. Okay, let's see. We have Mr. Jeffrey Busby.
My name is Jeffrey Busby. I live at 300 South Streamleaf Avenue, Star, Idaho. I do not live by this development. However, I do have granddaughters that live off Plummer Road, and the one concern I have is increase in transportation. Going from this traffic impact study for Sterling that was submitted in your documents, it said, for the 2025 background traffic conditions, analyzed with existing intersection controls and lane configurations, the intersections of State Highway 44 and Plummer Road and Floating Feather and Highway 16 do not meet minimum operational thresholds. And they give 2 recommendations. And one of them you have already addressed, and that was a traffic signal at Floating Feather Road and State Highway 16, which the state will not agree to. And then the other one is, physically, how are you ever going to change the intersection at Plummer and State Highway 44? It is a very narrow, steep grade, and it is very difficult to change that unless you buy out the farmer on one side and the businesses on the other that have the space. So that's my major concern, is traffic. It always disappoints me that the way states move on intersections and lights and traffics is based upon fatalities. Now, so far, we have not had any fatalities according to the records that were in this document. But that doesn't mean we aren't going to have a fatality. And why do we have to wait that long?
Shh, guys, I can't have you speaking when he's talking, please. Thank you.
Okay. Why do we have to wait for a fatality to happen to deal with an issue? And the issue is those intersections. So that is great concern. The other one is, and it's already been said, I'm going to say it, is that I've been coming to these meetings now for a little over a year. And the number one problem I have with the process is that you've come up with a master plan that you put a lot of time and effort into. Yet every time a developer wants to come in, they want you to change the zoning plans. Now you have a master plan. Why did you come up with that master plan? You know, why does the developer feel that they can, well, let's make it R4 now. You developed it as R2, which is great. So I have that concern is why a developer, and we know what the developer wants. He wants to maximize his investments. And I understand that, I have no problem with that. But it needs to be done within the parameters of the master plan that you already worked on to
10
develop.
seconds, sir.
Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's see. Mr. James Barnett, I think. Is that right? Barnett? Well, that was close
That's what my
enough
dad
for
said.
government work, right?
We Scots don't need 2 T's like those English.
All right. Name and address, please.
My
for the
name is
record.
James Barnett and I live at 10146 West Shumard Drive. Actually, most of the stuff that I was going to say has been well covered, so I'm not going to say those things. I do want to take note of the fact that I believe it was Mr. Nielsen here who said that to mitigate traffic or to take care of issues as far as increasing the growth, you need to either build up or build out. And that's true. If you want to mitigate traffic at all, the only way is to build out rather than up. And density, increasing the density is not the answer. Now, I have one other thing that I want to speak to, and that is something that nobody else has addressed yet, and that is a question of property rights crime type things. And that is because it has become an issue recently. I know that there is a desire to have pathways interconnected, and to have people to be able to use, the parks and so on in our various areas. However, we have 2 ponds in our area, which are private ponds. We have a pathway which is a private pathway, which is posted no trespassing. We are having an increase already of people coming from outside neighborhoods. You know, it's not just that they walk along the path, but now they think that they can throw their garbage along our pond. They think they can fish in our ponds. And this afternoon, we actually had to call the sheriff after another homeowner and I talked to a couple that were there who insisted that the pond is owned by the city of Star, and therefore they can fish any place they want to there. And that we have no right in order to tell them that they can't be there. If we have a higher density, we are going to have more of this. We've already got what's going in on Plummer. That's all rental over there. And when you have rental, when you have more transient people coming in, no power, no disrespect to them for wanting to be here at all. I understand why people want to be here. But again, as Jim said over here just a moment ago too, you know, people want to have, they move to an area like this because they want to have a yard. I've had 22 acres. I've had a quarter of an acre. I have about 0.28 acres now. It's nice to have a little bit of a yard. I don't know why anybody would want to move to a development that doesn't give them any yard at all, stacks the houses up. I've looked at some of these things and I've seen how they're stacked one on top of the other. There's no room for people to move around. Unfortunately, my next door neighbor is right up against me. They have a small lot and I feel sorry for them, honestly, because they can't come out without even seeing me. What's going to happen in this new development like this? Thank you for your time. I hope that you will keep the zoning at R2. I'm all for development. I have no problem with that. I think more people should move here, but they should stay in the zoning is the way it is now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Miss Renee Harrison.
I actually can withdraw because everybody has
Okay.
said what I was going to say.
Okay, thank you.
First time that's ever happened.
Mr. Jim Cheney. Well, he spoke, he wrote down it twice. I'm sorry. It was double important, right? Okay, Miss Debbie Forback, you said possibly? Okay. Mr. Paul Deems? Mr. Paul Deems, is there anybody out in the hallway? Okay. That helped out that sheet. So let's see, Mr. Mark Rourke. Are you Mr. Mark Rourke? Okay, gotcha. All right.
It's Mark Rourke, 10254 West Golden Range Street. And everything has pretty much been covered for the most part. However, there is one item that behooves all of us to keep repeating to the board. When we purchased, it was Zone 2. When we bought, we were told it was Zone 2. The research that we put in to when we purchased and bought our property, it was Zone 2. The realtor looked into it, Zone 2. We did all the footwork to buy where we wanted to buy. We decided this was the type of neighborhood that we all wanted to live in. Chances are, not very many of these folks probably would have bought it where we bought if it was not Zone 2 right next door with a street adjoining that neighborhood. And that is something that I request the board to remember and to consider, because our houses are our passion. We took a long time to get to where we are, to purchase where we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, Miss Erin Tominski. There you are.
Hi, it's Erin Tminsky, 7097 Southern Vista Court. And mostly I just want to echo what Nielsen said, Councilmember Nielsen, is that I think that you guys do have the power and the ability to consider how STAR is being developed. It's really in its infancy. And I would, I don't really consider us Eagle's neighbor or the new Eagle. I think Star's far more humble. I think we come from farming backgrounds. I'm a lifetime Idahoan. I'm also a realtor. I have great passion for developers and property rights, but I also have great passion for space and really respect where my children get to play. And how I think that you do have power is in your setbacks. I would love to see some setbacks because when you take a 40-acre parcel and it's zoned R4, we're at 160 houses. We take out 10% for streets and we take out 20%, and I'm guesstimating here for beaches and parks. And by the way, I absolutely love the development. I think I love so much about it. I love the walking paths as an agent. That's something someone wants. I love the community space. I think that's very important. But I can't tell you how many times I've lifted up a bedroom window and someone looked outside and said, oh, they're right there. Those 5-foot setbacks, they're not desirable. They don't support Star's humble feeling of rural living. And they are a safety issue. I know a fire chief that says he doesn't have a ladder truck in this town and he cannot access those properties well with 5-foot setbacks. So that's what I would push again for this development, but for all developments in Star, is that we do what we can to preserve our rural roots. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I can believe that, but that's all that signed up to speak out of 5 sheets. However, we're going to take a 5-minute facilities break before we move on to deliberations and rebuttal.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Hershey or Keys?
Can I follow up with one person who gave some testimony? Is Mr. Busby still here? Can you please come up here?
Well,
I
hang on
want
a
to
second.
follow up
Let
on
me
you.
clarify. Can we do that? Okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Busby, please.
Don't know what I did wrong.
You sparked a question.
Yes, sir.
Well, you made a statement that you think that we violate our master plan, what we call our comprehensive plan. And
Yes,
as a
sir.
councilman, I think we do put in a great deal of effort to meticulously follow the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And if you have an example where you think we violated, I would love to
Well,
discuss that with you.
So can we, just real quick, if it has nothing to do with the hearing, can we just have you guys set up a meeting and discuss?
It wasn't that you
appropriate.
violated, it's just they wanted, you had it set up as R2. Why aren't you leaving it at R2? That's my concern. I think I used the wrong terminology.
Okay, well,
Okay.
that's the difference between a zoning plan and a comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Their
My
future
fault.
land use map actually shows this parcel is 3 to 5.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. So that was
That's okay. You're good to go.
I'm not trying to be critical.
Okay, no, you're okay. Thank
Okay.
you. All right. Hearing that, it is 9:07. We're going to take a 5-minute break. And we'll be back at 9:12 to continue this. So, okay. Okay, it's 9:13. We're going to bring this meeting back to order. It's time for the applicant's rebuttal. I think are the applicants here? Oh, there you are. Okay, I was like, where'd they go? And you got 10 minutes to rebut.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Deborah Nelson, and my address is 601 West Bannock Street in Boise. I'm going to start off and then I'm going to hand it back over to Lewis, who started the presentation, so we'll give you a little bit of information. I want to try to go through some of the questions and comments that were presented to you and also what we heard from you guys to try to address some of the facts and concerns that are out there. And then the developer is ready to try to find a compromise that suits what the council is looking for. And so they've been listening and hearing what you've been asking for. And so we want to have some time to go through that too. So I just want to set that stage that we're not trying to fight everything, but we do want to make sure we're responding as best we can. Starting with, I'll try to keep this a little bit in order, but the comments were back and forth a little bit, but looking at transportation and some of the comments that we heard from the mayor and the council, You know, I think that as the developers already acknowledged, we recognize the city's got growth and has to plan for that. But there are growth rates that are factored into, and the TIS is based on Compass's significant growth rates for these roads. The smallest growth rate they considered was 4%, all the way up to 20% on Plummer. So significant growth is built into that. And the developer will be paying impact fees in addition to the proportionate share from ITD. But as we look at, I think you guys had a lot of questions about, but what is the capacity now that they have? Floating Feather is a minor arterial here. It already meets and will meet with the development and all of the planned growth levels of service. And so the road itself, the roadway, does not exceed capacity with this development and the planned growth. Same on Plummer, the other roadway that was required to be studied here. Mayor, you asked some questions about Floating Feather in 16 at the intersection though, and that is where mitigation is required. And it's required already from background conditions, and this development certainly has a share of that. The share of that is 1.25% of the trips at that intersection. It's just 40 acres, but that is the percentage of the trips at that intersection, and they will pay their proportionate share of that. So we just, yes, Mayor.
Let me ask you a question. I just want to go back to where was this actually taken? Was it on the old Floating Feather or the new one?
Mr. Mayor, my understanding is it is on the current alignment.
Current alignment.
Right.
So that's where my concern comes in when we were talking was that new alignment, that's where the traffic's just going to be going like this back and forth. So that's where the concern I have.
But Mr. Mayor, I understand your concern with that, but it is still a minor arterial with the same level of service designation. And so they do still have the same constraints placed on them as they're looking at safety and capacity and functionality.
Okay.
And so that service standard does stay the same. Let's see. Couple of things I'll jump a little bit to the comments from Ms. Bartlett about, or excuse me, Ms. Bartles, about how we didn't meet the preliminary plat. We do just want to call attention. We didn't get a staff report tonight, but I know you guys have all read it. We have a really good written staff report where they went through every single one of those requirements and every condition of the preliminary plat standards and determined that we do meet those. In particular, there was a comment about only a single access onto Floating Feather. Keep in mind that is dictated by spacing standards and safety. It is safer and more functional, less disruptive to have a single access, and that's what's required there. And we do meet all of those site distance standards. The connectivity to the local subdivisions, again, complying with city and ACHD standards there, and creates more connectivity, safer access, and better flow of traffic there. There was a concern that the ITD report was not in the record. In fact, it was provided to the city directly from ITD on April 16th, 2021. All agencies, there's a comment about other agencies didn't respond. All agencies were notified and requested for comments on May 5th. And so some of them respond and some of them don't have concerns. Those that did had supportive comments or conditions that the developer is happy to accept. That police and fire stations are close. That was acknowledged. The Star Sewer and Water District, there's already a condition of approval that requires us to be annexed and comply with all of their conditions of approval. This development provides a great transition of lots. And so I think that helps to get to a lot of your concerns of looking at, okay, well, should this be changed to an R4 zone? They have designed the exterior and perimeter of these lots to be closer to the R2 to match 1-to-1. And so they're really looking at the exterior to create that nice transition. The lots that are around us average 9,600 square feet, and ours are actually closer to 75% of that. There was claims that we were 60% less, which is just not factual on that. I think the council already responded very well to some of the comments about really what's in the plan. And I guess, you know, Councilmember Hershey, and you started this conversation at the beginning of what should we do for density. And I guess just a couple of quick responses on that. Remember, this site isn't developed, and so it is zoned R2, but when somebody's coming in to develop a site, you do look to what the city has master planned for this. And as recently as in 2020, when you guys amended your plan, you designated this and some of the surrounding property, or actually all of the surrounding property immediately adjacent to us as neighborhood residential calling for 3 to 5. So while it is zoned R2 and we have to come to you to ask for a rezone, we did look to the plan and we did visit with your staff and we did consider what the city as in your vision had planned for this area. And that's what was implemented here. They're in the low end of that range already. And I think they're also ready to try to make some concessions to provide more of what you are looking for now. That density is also, as Councilmember Nielsen pointed out, you do go either up or out. And so it's a great location because here we're a mile from downtown. We are close to the parks. We are close to schools. We're on a minor arterial. It is a perfect location to put some density. That's where you do have the capacity in your services, where you're close to police, where you're close to fire, where you're close to schools. It's the perfect location instead of being further out where you have to stretch to serve and expend more budgetary expense to serve. I think with that, I don't want to spend more time, so I'm going to turn it over to the developer to address some more of your concerns, and we're both available for questions.
So you got about 3 minutes.
Mayor, thank you. Members of the council, just again, answering a few questions. There was a question about lots 3, 10, and 19. Those are proposed to be common area lots, not developed lots. And, you know, we do hear the concerns of the residents, the surrounding residents. And one of the things, you know, I've discussed with my principals is it mentioned the minimum 10-foot setback. And we could definitely accommodate that into our site plan and modifications to the map. And to further address the concerns of the density, we would be amenable to, instead of having an R4 designation, an R3 designation. And in addition, along the entire south side of the site, we'd make sure that all of the homes are single story. We'd also make sure that the homes along the east side match the homes that are to the east, whether or not those are a single story or a 2-story. And we would modify the plan, reduce the unit count. Some of the things about connecting to the adjacent projects, you know, we think it's a good thing to have those connections. We do understand some of the concerns about that connectivity, but we do want this incorporated into these beautiful communities that are to the east and to the south. And we're hoping by further agreeing or further reducing the density, increasing the setbacks, that would be something that the city council could consider. And, you know, so at that point, we'd be consistent with the lowest end of the comp plan, and we'd make sure we replotted everything to ensure the homes we build are consistent with that setback. And again, I'm here, the principals are here, our consultants are here, and we very, very much appreciate all the community input. We very much appreciate all the hard work that's been put together by staff. And I know it's a late night, and we just want to thank you for all the questions and having the opportunity to present this to you guys for consideration this evening.
Okay, any questions of the applicant? Really? Wow, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Okay. Okay. You're good? Okay. So we are going to close the public hearing and go on to council deliberations. Somebody's got to start.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hershey.
All right. I love going first with this. First off, even with the concessions made, I am not just in a position to say yes to an approval tonight. And as a matter of fact, if they'd come in at 180 units, even 153, I would have pushed for a denial. However, it looks like this sorry, I'm federal. This applicant is actually willing to work with us. And I believe, even as is, it's a very attractive project. And I haven't heard anybody say anything against that. Now, the concerns of traffic and the concerns of pathways and connectivity are always a concern. And I've heard many times a neighborhood complain about speeding traffic of the adjoining neighborhood that doesn't exist yet, which means the speeding traffic is themselves doing it. And that's something that's just always a problem. Because when it comes to speeding through your own neighborhood, no matter how many signs you post or calming of traffic, there's one thing that's very hard to regulate, and that's called choice. It's very, very difficult to regulate choice without being completely extreme. So I'm always cognizant of that, but it's just something where even my own neighborhood, people tell me that they hate people flying by, and I see them flying by. How do I know? Because I like to get out there and run, even when it's 100 degrees. I like to get out there and run, so I almost get hit all the time, but that's half my fault too. However, I've heard what you've said today, and when I first initially looked at this, I was thinking R3 would be the maximum that I would accept. But after hearing you all, I think it should go down into the 2s. I'm not saying where, but I believe it would be a good fit. After seeing the additional maps, the additional information given, and the testimony offered, with all they've proposed, and even with the setbacks and single story, which I think we'll have to hold them to, I want to see a reduction in density and possibly addressing the other things of making more of it towards the north, towards Floating Feather, which is the main road that's going to take them out or take out the traffic. That's where I'll start. And also, I did not see a fire report. And that's the one thing I could not hang my hat on, is what was missing in this. I did not see the fire chief's report, and I would like to see that before approving this as well.
Okay, any further discussion?
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman?
I'd like to have maybe a little deliberation first before I say my opinion or my thoughts. So Councilman Keys, you said earlier towards the beginning that that with the rezone we have a little more discretionary leeway, I guess, for making our decision on rezones. But when I look at our packet, you know, our code states pretty clearly what we have to, you know, what we need to look at. And so I'm asking you, I guess, and maybe rest of council, because a number of these items, you know, I think that the application, it does fit. There's one that, you know, doesn't, so that might be the reason why I deny it. But the other ones, I'm just looking for some guidance, I guess, and some deliberation from rest of council. And I guess also for your information, I've been on council for like 1.5 years now, still pretty new at this, get nervous and all that. But we don't see a lot of rezones. I went back and looked at the last until January, and I think I saw 2 that we had since January. So a lot of what you see of the applications are actually annexations, not rezones. And so just to put that, you know, I guess to assume that we are just rezoning all of, you know, property left and right, I think, you know, as a misperception. So
Could you identify the condition you feel is lacking, just for clarity of the conversation?
yes, thank you. So number 4 is the rezone shall not result in adverse impact upon the delivery of services by any political subdivision providing public services within the city. My interpretation of that is, and based on the findings and the input from the, you know, ITD, and ITD did not say that from the TIS study that, you know, that study states that 2 intersections will fail based on the 2025 build out model. And ITD and ACHD don't have an agreement on how to resolve that. And so that's the one that really stuck out for me. And the other ones, I guess, are, it does fit the comprehensive plan. That's that 3 to 5 units per acre. The rezone complies with the regulations outlined in the district. They're not looking for any waivers or exceptions. They're, a single family detached as proposed. The rezone shall not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. I guess I did have a little question on that one. And I even earlier today, I went online to see if there's a specific definition of what welfare means, because I think that could be interpreted differently. So is that where we have some leeway on our personal opinion? Or, I don't think that if this development was built, that someone's going to lose their life, necessarily specifically because of this house is built. Maybe due to a traffic accident, I don't know, but yeah, so I will just stop. And then the last one in that area, that's our requirement, was with the annexation, and that isn't the case in this application, so that one doesn't apply. That was really long for me. Thank you for everyone's patience.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Keys?
Hershey.
Oh, I thought he was saying, Councilman Hershey?
I'm sure he'll speak in a minute. I just want to say, Councilwoman Solomon, the way I interpret things, you said one thing about the comprehensive plan. I believe the comprehensive plan is painted with a very broad brush. We do not look at absolute individual parcels when we do something like that. We could, but we never get done. And so I look at that as a reference, as a guide, as a help. But also, when I know there's a zoning, and in annexations, there's no zoning at all. We're totally different set of rules there. But in this case, there's a designated zoning. And to go beyond it, to me, means that you need to have a lot of justification and a lot of, I'll just say WIFM, which is what's in it for me, not me, but what's in it for Star, WIFs. I wouldn't know how to pronounce that, but to go beyond what's already been granted as an entitlement by a previous council takes a lot for me to go beyond that, even if our zoning does get close. I believe the comprehensive plan is a very open look. It's a best guess, but when it comes right down to each individual parcel, that's when all this other information becomes relevant, and an entitlement, to me, is very relevant. But yes, very good points. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Keys?
So I'd like to speak to Councilwoman Solomonson's question first, and I'm just going to offer my own opinion and my own thinking, and you'll have to generate your own, and you have an attorney back here who can validate your questions. But so when I look at this, I look at typically the comprehensive plan, I look at state statutes, look at ordinances, and I look at whatever case law I can find, which is really kind of hard when you're not an attorney. But from our comp plan in section 8.2, it says in there, it is the sole discretion of the city council to determine the best zoning using the comprehensive plan as a guide. I'd also like to point out that the comprehensive plan is more than just a future land use map. It's really easy to look at that map because it's the shiniest thing in the whole plan. But there's another almost 200 pages of other plan, including a section called community design, and the section that you just mentioned about not being materially detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare, which brings me to the statutes. So from Idaho Code 67-6511, it says that the zoning district shall be in accordance with the policies set forth in the adopted comprehensive plan, which again is more than just the land use map. But it goes on to say in section 2A in part, particular consideration shall be given to the effects of any proposed zone change upon the delivery of services by any political subdivision providing public services, including school districts within the planning jurisdiction. And then I also look at case law, and there's a ton of case law on this, but I'm just going to quote one case that I found. And by the way, I found this in the Idaho Land Use Handbook, which is it's where I find most of my case law stuff. And it's a case from Bone versus City of Lewiston, and I quote, "The Idaho Supreme Court has ruled that local government is not bound to grant a rezone application simply because it is consistent with the future contemplated uses shown in the land use map." And so for me, when I add all that up, that adds up to this is discretionary for us if we choose to exercise that discretion. Does that help? Okay. So we've heard a lot of public testimony tonight, and before that, we got, and I counted them, and I haven't checked to see if any more have come in, probably 5 more, but I counted 48 letters that came in from the public starting in February of this year, February. I don't believe I've ever had letters that start coming in 5 months in advance, but in this case we did. And like I said, I read every single one of them. We also heard an awful lot of public testimony tonight, and none of it, other than that from the applicant, was in favor of changing the zoning on this parcel. And so I did listen to some public testimony. Specifically, I listened to, I believe it was Mr. Rourke, who brought up expectations of the neighbors when they purchased this property, that they looked at the zoning and it was R2, and they made their decisions on that. And interestingly enough, if this didn't already have zoning, then they would have had to have looked at the comprehensive plan, which would have given you a very different answer than the existing zoning. And I think that setting those types of expectations in the city is important. I also feel that since this is discretionary, I have more of an opportunity to take advice from the citizens than I would in another type of a situation without getting sideways with the law. And I also noted that there was, which is not typical, is we had feedback from beyond just neighbors who were adjacent to the project. Most of the time, we get feedback, it's from neighbors who are directly adjacent to the project. In this case, we had feedback from neighbors who were, in some cases, quite a distance away. So, and so it's my intention to exercise the discretion I believe I have to vote to deny this zoning request. But I also have a question for everybody here, and that is, when we amended.
They will not be able to answer your question, however.
I know, but I wanted to think about it. So when we amended our comp plan in 2020, where were you? And the reason that and even in 2019, and the reason I asked that question is because if in that comprehensive planning process, if you would have come to us and said, we believe this parcel should be R2 in the comprehensive plan, this will be a much shorter meeting tonight, and we wouldn't even potentially be having this conversation. But nobody came and did that. And the reason I know that is because when we had our public hearing for the comprehensive plan in 2019, we had about a half a dozen requests for changes, and we granted every single one, and nobody requested that we change the comprehensive plan for this parcel. So what I would encourage you to do is, when we ask, almost beg people to get involved in the comprehensive planning process and our other planning processes, like our South of the River plan and later our West Star plan that'll be coming up in the future, please get involved, because the decisions that are made in those planning processes where we really invite citizens to be engaged makes meetings like this a heck of a lot easier to have. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my lengthy comment.
Okay, breathe. Okay, Councilman Nielsen.
Thank you. I will also, and I love to point this out, that we did have a full 10% of the city of Star that participated in that comp plan back in 2019. And so I thought that was an incredible turnout. And so that, when I look at our comprehensive plan, I think that it does reflect the voice of the people in large part. Or I guess I should say generally and not specifically. I would like to ask our council if he would address Councilwoman Salmonson's question on what constitutes material and welfare and things like that.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Trying to see through Mr. Keys's ears and I can't quite see him. Thanks, Michael.
It was clear to me.
Oh, good. Good question. Pulling up the Star City Code here again while we're visiting. You did go through the standards that have to be met for the rezone application. And for a city to approve the rezone, the council has to make the following findings. We just kind of talked about these, but I just want to reiterate them just for everybody in the room. The first is that it complies with the applicable provisions of the comp plan, which is both the comp plan map and the comp plan text. The map has already been discussed tonight, shows this property as 3 to 5 units per acre. The text provides a lot more detail to what that means or what a particular location might look like and those sorts of things, what kind of services the city is looking to provide. So all of that detail is part of that specific standard. The second, that it complies with the regulations outlined for that proposed district. Typically, that's referring more to like a special use district, like your central business district. But there may be other districts. But that's to make sure that if you have an overlay district or something else, that you're not just granting a rezone, but you're also looking at all layers that might apply to this particular piece. I'm not aware that this parcel has a specific overlay district attached to it, so we're really looking more at the comprehensive plan. Whether it's materially detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. I wish I could tell you a bright line rule that says if it affects it this much, it's not material, but as soon as you take one more step, now it's material. It is something you have to look at. Clearly, if you had something from an agency that says we cannot service this project, that would be materially detrimental. You may, on your own, determine that, for instance, the school district may write a letter that says, we don't have enough room for the kids at the Star Elementary School, so we may be having to bus children someplace else until we can build a new school. And some people would say, okay, that's material because we can't service those students within the district. Others might look at that and say it's not material because the way the West Ada School District builds buildings is you have to fill one up before they'll build another one. And so, and some may say that actually helps to get a second elementary school in Star. So that's a personal determination that you would make. And then it ultimately becomes a group determination as a majority of the council on whether that would be a material standard. The last one that's applicable here, because the fifth one's annexation, which obviously is not part of this request, is that it doesn't result in an adverse impact on the delivery of services by any political subdivision providing public services in the city. And so there you're talking about the county that provides the police service by contract, the fire district that provides your fire services, the sewer and water district that provides your sewer and water services. Those are all your other political subdivisions that provide services within the city and provide services to this. And the Ada County Highway District and ITD would fit those as well. And generally you make that determination based on their letters. If they say that they can service it, typically a city council will take their word for it. And we've had that conversation before with other applications, right? I mean, they're the experts. It's, for the highway district, it's their road. But you don't have to take their word for it. You can say, well, I understand what your letter says, but I think that this is, an adverse impact. It doesn't mean no impact. That's not the standard. Every application is going to have some impact on services, right? Anytime you build a subdivision, there's an impact on the sewer plant. There's more houses that are going to flow into the sewer system. There's more houses that are going to use the water system. There is an impact. Is it adverse to the effect that it's causing problems within the system or maybe causing problems for other people? I think that, to me, that's where that conversation is. So I don't know how helpful that is, but the reality is that we have these standards in the city code. There are findings that have to be met. Your staff, Sean does a great job writing the staff reports. Those are the findings that would show up in the staff report that say, yes, we've met this standard. But if you have one that doesn't, then the city council can say, we'll deny the zoning application because whichever one you're relying on, we think there's it's materially detrimental to health and safety. Now, normally, if you're going to deny it, you also would give guidance to the applicant to know what they could do to get approved. And not just a blanket no. You have to figure out what we're thinking and come back another time and hope we say yes again. You need to give them generally some guidance on what it would take to allow them to be approved. So It may be that an application meets the comp plan, but maybe it is detrimental to services. And so you have to meet each one of those individually. And that's the thought process that the council should go through as they're considering applications on a rezone. Anyway, so that's, again, that may be a longer answer or may not have been, hopefully it was on topic.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question
Hey,
for the attorney.
Mayor Chadwick,
Like, follow-up question?
well, I guess I just yielded some time to council, so I'm still gonna go with my part of the deliberation here. So I think very similarly to Councilwoman Salmonson, I'm looking at this application and I'm kind of checking those boxes. Because that's how I try to approach it. I really try to, take my personal feelings out of this and look at things as objectively as possible. And in this case, it's the application is checking those boxes for me. I mean, it meets our comprehensive plan. I'm not finding adverse impacts, like our council said, that there are impacts for sure. I don't believe it meets that standard for adverse impacts. And similarly to my other council members up here, I'm also landing toward that, this is discretionary, and we've got, a lot of folks here that have some input on this, and so that's not falling short on me either. And hearing from the council that it doesn't sound like we are going to push toward an R3 decision tonight. I really appreciate the applicant making some of the concessions that they have thus far. I think that it really improves the application, in the direction that this council's thinking and what we've heard here from the citizens tonight. So I guess I'm wondering how the rest of the council feels. I'm of a mind that we table this tonight rather than a denial, and ask that the applicant go back and consider all that's been said here tonight, including what does this look like at an R2, and come back with that. And just so you guys know, there's a lot of investment that goes into this, and I want to respect that part, that all that work and effort that our applicants go through. It's hard to understand unless you've been there yourself, how much effort that is and how much expense that is. And when we just say a flat out no, I mean, somebody said here tonight, you guys have the power to say no, and when you don't say no, you lose your authority, and that absolutely isn't true.
No, guys, no, hey, no, public can't say anything now.
I lose no authority when I say yes or no, because my authority is to say yes or no, according to the law. And this application has met the finer points of the law as far as I'm concerned. And so it's down to my discretion and our discretion here. And so I want to honor that investment that you guys have made. And I guess my recommendation is that we give you guys another round so that you don't just lose all of that in one fell swoop, and see what happens. See if we can come back with an agreement. So.
Okay. Councilman Keys, hang on, he was next.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to give a little more background on where I'm, concerned with this. So I am concerned with what the TIS says about the intersections that are going to be severely impacted by this. And by the way, just so everybody knows, this is actually the first time the council's ever seen the full-blown TIS. We typically only get summaries, but I've asked that we now get the full TIS in every public hearing going forward. Part of my concern also is with the report from the school. They indicated that current capacity this is the elementary school, 650. They have 614 enrolled so far for the coming year. And at this density, they're looking at 107 additional students. They don't say how many are going to go to the elementary school versus the others, but typically from what I've seen, it's a little more heavily weighted to elementary school. And so those are the concerns I have. But the question I had for staff was, or specifically our attorney, was kind of an extension of what Councilman Nielsen is saying is, can we deny the rezone and table the preliminary plat?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Keys, if you denied the rezone, the plat typically would go away because that's, well, let me
So-
think through that. So what you're thinking is leave the rezone at R2
Mhm.
and then ask them to bring back a preliminary plat that would be consistent with that
Comply with that.
zone. I think you could, yeah, so I was gonna say, normally that would, a rezone would kill that, but in this case, if you're just asking them to go back to the existing zone, I think you could keep that application open, if that was what the council was inclined to do. And that would, so they wouldn't have to, you wouldn't be ending the plat application, or the development agreement would go away because you're not doing a rezone.
Right, and my concern is if we deny the entire thing, staff has told me that we're backed up to what, December at this point for new applications? Where if we table it, we can move much more quickly.
Right, so yeah, the rezone would end the development agreement application that's tied to this, but the plat, I think, could still continue forward based on the existing zoning of the property. And so, but they would obviously have to do an amendment and bring that back to meet with those zoning standards, because obviously, as we talked tonight, the current plat application would not comply with the R2 zone.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ms. Samuelson, did you have further comments?
That was going to be my question as well, if we can table it. The preliminary plat, got the answer to that. Oh, let's see. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a minute, so
Okay,
Hershey, did you, or somebody else have something?
Mr. Mayor, if I could add one more thing, just in
Yes.
response to Councilman Keys. One option to, if the city was, the council was considering to table some or all of this application, if you wanted to keep the development agreement in place, there may be, because with the development agreement, you can negotiate on densities and other things, right? And so if you still were willing to consider a rezone from R2 to something, you could keep the development agreement in place and have that negotiation for additional terms if you wanted to. And so you wouldn't necessarily have to deny the rezone tonight. You could table everything and see where things come back going forward and what things look like based on the conversation, the direction that might be given tonight. But that would give the council the opportunity to keep the development agreement application alive.
okay. Any further comments,
Mayor
deliberation?
Mayor Chadwick.
Yes,
Consistent with what Chris has advised, personally, I think that that the R3 zone is a good compromise.
it's all right, just keep going.
And I guess, and I'll just say, based on something that the applicant, brought up and touched on briefly, and that is that Floating Feather is an arterial, and good planning indicates that we do put more density around schools and make it so that, and around parks, and make it so that people don't have to travel quite so far to get to those places. I realize that's unpopular. I don't come up with the rules or come up with what works really well in communities. There's a lot of communities that have been built out there, and you want to put that density along those roads. And our comprehensive plan calls that out. And I understand that's unpopular, but again, this is objective. And I realize that it does make everybody happy to hear that. But from that perspective, you were looking at R4 when you walked in here tonight. And there's an R2 there right now. And I'm looking at a really quality builder, and I've heard a lot of you guys, testify to that tonight. In fact, I make that quality builder statement based on what I've heard from about 6 people here tonight. So we want to invite good quality builders into our community. We want to invite people who are willing to work with us and build a product that's going to look beautiful. And when we ask them to make their frontage look amazing, they're just like, yep, we'll do it. That's the kind of folks that you want to work with. and not just play hardball with all the time. So based on that, I'm just putting it out there that I'm open to the R3 designation, and keeping that development agreement open. I think that is important to have that development agreement. That's the only way that we have the opportunity for the developer to contribute to the cost of state highway development right here in Star. Without the development agreement, we can't do that. And so if we leave it at R2, then there's nothing in there that says that this developer has to contribute to the ITD proportionate share for intersection mitigation and things like that. There's also nothing in there that gives us the ability to negotiate additional concessions. And so we've got some concessions here tonight, and I'm putting myself in the boots of the developer. Do they come back with an R2 with no concessions because there's no development agreement, or do we, take what we can work out with here tonight?
Or you could bring it down to a 2.5 with the development agreement too.
That's
I mean, that's
exact-
all,
yeah,
it's all
that's exactly
available. It's all
right.
on the table.
That's exactly right. So, I'm looking at it from that perspective, that perhaps it is in the best interest of the citizens and the city of Star here to keep that development agreement in place and to work something out and not just play hardball.
Okay. Any motions, more
Mr. Mayor?
comments? Councilman Keys?
So, Councilman Nielsen, you raised a good point about keeping the development agreement open, and thank you, Chris, for that advice. And I think there's value in that. Would you be open to, and it sounds like you would, be open to a motion to direct the applicant to come back with an application for a development that didn't exceed 100 homes, which essentially is your 2.5?
Yes.
We've heard public testimony tonight that would be an acceptable number to at least some people.
So do we have a motion or anything?
How would we motion that? I mean, hold on, first off, I understand leaving the development agreement open. I also understand the unpopular positions. And one thing that I really do appreciate about Councilman Nielsen is he's out of reach to throw things at him. No, just kidding. Is the fact that he does bring up valid points. However, I am strongly inclined, like I said, and I'll make this as clear as possible. The reason I'm not saying deny is because we have tabled some real disasters of developments, and they have come around to be very nice. And we've tabled some real disasters of developments, and the applicant didn't even get it on the third go around, and then they were totally denied.
And we said no.
Yes, and we said no. We don't always say yes, and we don't always say no. And when we table, we're saying mostly no. However, because, and I am the one that asks for reduction in density almost every single time, and I'm not changing my course on this one. However, I like R2. I think R3, when I first look at it, I thought R3 was going to be good, but the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I heard, I'm much more inclined to go towards the R2. However, I like to leave the direction at get it to as R2 as you, and I promise you guys will see it again. I mean, good Lord, you'll find it. You're going to have people like on watch looking for this thing. And so, and I do believe a tabled application still has to be noticed again or something of similar, not noticed, but
a tabled,
but it has to be in the agenda. It has to be on the packet. It has to be seen. So yes, I would make a motion to table this with the understanding that R2 is your entitlement. R2 is not an argument. Anything above that, show us. And I truly believe going to R2.5 would be about as maximum as I think would be acceptable. But I'd really want to see, and I really want to see how it looks on the map. That's my big thing. Every time I've asked for reduction or loss of flats, I like to see it again because I think you all want to see it again.
Sean,
So if you could,
I'm going to jump in, sorry.
I'm done. That's good.
August 17th. August 17th or September 7th. August 3rd is not on the docket because that's our budget hearing. And July 20th is packed. Cool.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen?
I make a motion that we table this to September 7th, and I'm being selfish in picking that date because I won't be here on the 17th, and I want to be here for this. And
Table for what direction?
to give the applicant the opportunity to consider the testimony and the deliberation that's taking place here tonight, and come back with a new plan.
Does that suffice?
Your motion can be what you want it to be. I mean, you obviously have the date certain, which is the, the legal requirement. You might be able to get a head nod from the applicant whether they feel like they've got enough direction based on the conversation that's been made. Then we'd be back in 2 months. They'd bring back the revised plan, whatever that looks like. We'd have another public hearing to allow the public to again comment on that. There may be conversations with the public before then. Not guaranteeing any of that, but there is time for that potentially. So as
And
long as the
just
applicants-
clarify, the conversations with the public is only the applicant.
Correct, not with the city.
Not with anybody up here. None of these
Right.
guys can speak to anybody while this is an active application. So everybody's aware, don't email these guys, don't try to phone call any of these guys. It's only the applicant at this point.
Yeah,
So-
any
those emails
email
won't
should
be
go,
read.
any emails should go to city staff. So the city can hear public comment, but it should not be going to the elected officials. It should go to staff, and then they'll make sure the public officials get it as part of the record.
And my motion's intentionally a little bit vague because I think that some of the conversation here tonight has been kind of all over the place. And so, but all over the place within a range, right? And I think that range is well understood.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Keys?
Councilman Nielsen, would you consider amending your motion to put in the spirit of Chris saying we should give the applicant some more direction, amending your motion to say that they would come back with a plan with a maximum of 100 homes in it?
Which is a 2.5.
Or are you looking at something less?
I don't want to put that restriction on there. If 102 homes makes the most sense, to me, I think they've heard 2 to 2.5 very clearly. And I think 100's probably a good number, but I mean, there might be one extra lot in there that it makes sense for 101. I don't know.
So 2.5 is what we're shooting ish.
Well, that's not what his motion says.
I know. So we have a motion.
I mean, give them the flexibility to come back with a plan. That's what my motion is intending to do here tonight.
Okay, so we have a motion. Does anybody second that?
Can
Second.
I?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm going for it, sorry.
No, I wasn't going to second it.
Okay, then you.
But-
Well, we could have further discussion.
Thank
So
you.
we got a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so I'd just like to make sure in the record that some of the things they've already said they'd like to own up to, even though they're coming back. The story matching, if it's a single story across the way, single story next to it. That I think is very important. Also get clarity for us on if it's a 5-foot berm fence or 5-foot berm and 5-foot fence. Also, even though there's a little opposition to it, I know you guys are the champions of it, but I'd like to see those pathways connect. I mean, I think that's just so important. Lastly, this is for the 7th, right? Because
September 7th.
good, because I hate to say this, but it looks like I might not be here the 17th. And the reason being is I work federal fire. You might have noticed it's a bad year. Well, for us, it's a good year. But no, that's it. And even though I am the lamest firefighter in the world and I fire the keyboard, I do get called to the field. And I already have one resource order that's pulling me out as of this Sunday. I'm headed out down to, 3,000-mile loop. That's what I'm going to be taking.
So we got a motion and a second.
Yes.
Any
motion
further
is like-
discussion on the application?
On the 7th, just making sure.
Okay, September 7th.
Yes,
Any
but-
further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. So it'll be tabled till September 7th. All the public will be able to testify on that as well, again, just so you're aware. Hang on, hey guys, just real quick, I just want to make sure everybody's aware. It will get posted on the city's website a week before the hearing, so you can actually see everything. So look at that, and then you're able to testify on September 7th again as well. Okay? Thank you. So we get everybody to fly out of here real quick so we can finish with our business. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but I was gonna try to, the world happened there. Okay, go ahead, take it. Thank you so much. Yes, sir, thank you.
With Windows 10, you don't have to close them anymore. It's safe to just yank
Oh,
them.
is it? Oh, okay, all right. Can we get everybody to go outside, please?
Or sit down.
No, you're okay. What? We won't. So, okay, let's, thank you. Looks like you might be the only one here, Matt.
I've been in that spot where
Okay, we're gonna move on to item 6B, the tentative adoption of the FY 2021-2022 budget. It's the same. Well, did you give me the number? You haven't, it wasn't in the packet, so I need the number. And I don't have my computer to look it up. The number we, on our workshops that we came up with for our budget.
In the bottom line, like 12
Yeah.
million?
Yeah. This is the max amount.
Oh, you're
Hmm? I gave it, I already passed them on over there.
Yeah, while Jacob's looking this up, just a reminder for the council, as the mayor just said, this is your max number. So when you have your public hearing, you can't go above this number. You can go below it if you want to. But if you want to go above it, you would have to have another public hearing. So just a reminder on how that kind of budget process works when you get to the public hearing.
You'll have the number that we worked on that.
Yeah, I sent it all to you guys after that night.
I'll find it. Here it is.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman,
well, while they're looking for that number, one of the thoughts I've had since our workshop on this is whether or not, I mean, we discussed a couple of different salaries and made some adjustments. Should we be looking at the other salaries across city staff as well? Are there other adjustments that need to be made?
so we made adjustments last year, market adjustments, but we also have it built in here at 86 or at 8%, which is 3 and 5 for discretionary. So it is there.
Okay.
Can you make that wider so we can see what that number is?
12,627,273.04. Is that the correct number?
That should be the correct number right there.
Should we? 12,627,273.04. Now, my question is this. I think that's a very accurate number, but should we add a teeny bit to it just in case? Because remember, this is preliminary. This is not approved.
We can, can't we?
You can set the number where we
Whatever
want,
we
but again,
want.
it's a max, right? So if you think that you might add a couple $100,000 as part of some salary review or something like that, you could certainly add that to this number and use that as your number for the public hearing, and then you could still use this number as your final approval or go below that.
I just don't want to go have a great idea come out of some public comment and then it goes to 12,628,000 or something. So let's just take it to 13.
So
All good?
in support of that, you know, we talked briefly about getting an ice hockey rink set up potentially for over there at the, you know, Star River House. And some of the numbers I threw out on that was just based on quick internet searches while we were there in the workshop. And that would be for like a backyard. The number that we put in there would be for like a backyard size rink. So we'd want to go a little bit bigger, or perhaps consider a rental, although they want rentals, you know, in March, scheduled in March. So I think we may be a little bit late, probably late for anything this year, quite honestly.
So you want to say 13?
13?
So I think going 13 would probably be good. Leave us open on that sort of thing.
So we need a motion on the revenue and expenditures at 13, right?
Mr. Mayor?
Is that good? 13 though, real quick?
You know, it's a good round number, and I think we can go with it, and then, you know, do a little bit of legwork in between now and then, and maybe it's something that we pull out, you know, in this budget, and if we decide we want to do it, we'll just have to reopen the budget, you know,
Okay.
when that time comes.
Councilman Keys?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a tentative budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022 of $13 million for both income and expense.
A second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, that motion carries.
It's actually a good buffer. It's right about 3%.
So we're gonna move on to the elected officials' reports. That's it. Well, we don't have any discussion items right now.
Bless you.
Well, okay, so I need to ask a question. This wasn't, we can't take action on it because it wasn't specifically listed on here as an action item, but it's the report from Keller on doing our work over here on Highway 44.
You would have to amend the agenda.
Well, but it's too late to amend it, right? Because it's to make it an action item.
Well, you can't.
So we're gonna wait till the 20th.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say we're gonna wait till the 20th to discuss it. Because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, because we can't today we can't approve it because there's no action item on it.
Well,
So,
and Mr. Mayor, my intent isn't to ask to approve it. My intent is to ask you to direct Keller to change it. Then we can discuss it and adopt it.
well, that would be an action.
To ask you something?
No, you can
Without-
ask me.
Without a vote?
You could ask him outside of the
You can ask
meeting,
all
too.
sorts you want there on that, and then we'll,
Well, so let me just stick it out there. When I looked at this, it was only for a portion of the Highway 44 corridor that we had originally discussed, basically from Highbrook to Star Road. And we initially discussed going from Canada Road to Star Road. And I would like Keller to provide an option for the Canada to Highbrook section as well.
so we'll ask them to do an alternate for that section is all on that, because based on the conversations I had with ITD, we may not have enough funding yet for that last section.
And well, yeah, if we
So-
get the alternate
We
on
can do an
here
alternate.
and the budget numbers come back, maybe we can. So-
Okay.
So that's.
But
all.
anyway, I can talk about it in my reports.
We assumed that was part of Councilmember Key's report.
Okay. So go ahead. We'll start with Councilman Nielsen real quick. Anything to report, boss?
So I'll just talk briefly, you know, as mentioned earlier, met with ACHD. I found that to be very enlightening on a number of fronts, mostly not exciting enlightening, but like, you know, really, do we have to go back to the drawing board type of enlightening? So I think we've got some discussions around, you know, what does our master plan look like? And some real serious questions about what can we do to plan this city to try to make this more of a, you know, live, work, and stay in Star rather than commute out of Star. Do our part in the valley to help mitigate that long-term traffic outlook. You know, where they talk about over 100% congestion, a full build out with all the roads and everything. I don't know what can be done. Maybe we need some more education But I'd like for us to continue putting some thought into that. And then just call out, I'll go from doom and gloom to what an amazing community we have. And of course, I know that y'all have thoughts on this, but our hometown celebration, I loved having it on July 3rd and 4th, Idaho's birthday and our nation's birthday. And Mayor Chadwick, you're leading our community in saying the Pledge of Allegiance and inviting, our fireworks show to be started there with prayer, with the national anthem, and a reading of the Declaration of Independence, at least a preamble. It was just inspiring, and I've received nothing but positive feedback and just incredible, touching feedback from people. Folks that have said they've never felt more proud when they sang the national anthem, or to be part of a community. And I just can't underscore how important that is. And I think, I wish all those people were here to hear me say this too, that, if we all just watch out for each other and take care of, get to know our neighbors and take care of each other, my opinion is it doesn't matter how big our community gets, if we will, keep love in our hearts and just watch out for each other, say hi to strangers. And when the traffic's bad, let somebody in. I think that's the secret to keeping our community feeling like it's the hometown we all want to be part of. And so I appreciate your leadership, Dana and Ryan and everybody, all the volunteers that helped out. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, good. Councilwoman?
Excellent message, Councilman Nielsen. Totally agree. Real quickly, the Parks, Art, and Beautification Committee, we met on June 20th, right before, well, I guess a few weeks before the 4th of July parade, which they participated in and had an awesome float. So we met, and I'm sure Chairman Matt Raspar will be filling us in next month's meeting at the beginning. The committee is having a workshop on July 11th regarding the Parks chapter in the comprehensive plan. We want to look at that and just really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and see, if the committee needs to make any recommendations for council to review for possible changes.
Yeah, when we're talking changes, we're talking about number of parks per thousands and things like that.
Exactly, yes.
Number of acres. Of
Yeah,
parks per
not so much about the location at this point. It's all, to make sure that overall the citizens are being served at an adequate level.
Because this is going to help us when we reopen up our impact fee committee too. So.
So I'm excited about that. And then, I also attended the July 3rd parade. That was my first parade I have been in as a city council member. And it was amazing. So fun to see everyone out, and it was great. And raised money for the Star Senior Center by having a pie in my face. That was a lot of fun. And I sat in the dunk tank also for the Mayor's Youth Council. All in all, I also really liked that the event was a 2-day event. It seemed like, I can't imagine what you guys have done in the past that have planned and had to go through starting early morning into the late night. So I was exhausted, for the 2 days. I can't imagine how you did it with as just one day. So
Dana wouldn't be here today. She'd still be sleeping.
Right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Keys.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to extend my comments. I also just want to echo the thoughts of the other counselors about the 4th of July. And I especially, I want to thank Dana. I've watched her plan this for a few years. I know how hard she works on this. I know how emotionally draining it is, and thank you. So it's a pretty amazing event. Tomorrow morning, Transportation Committee's meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to select a new member of the Pedestrians Advisory Group to ACHD. We are looking, I don't have the date. I need to get the date on the adoption of the impact fee ordinance for Canyon Highway 4. Do you have any information on that?
We are, I believe it's on the, Jacob, is it on the 20th that we're gonna have?
Okay, I'll reach out to them tomorrow and see if I can get some clarity on that.
August 3rd. That's be budget day.
Okay, well, I'll get some clarity on when I'll be ready and I'll get back with you. And I was also able to attend a meeting of Compass where they're talking about demographics. And Mr. Mayor, I'd love it if you'd give us a little insight into that as well. And about what the plan is going forward and why that's important. And I think given the hour, I'm just going to terminate my report right there.
Councilman Hershey.
The only thing I actually have to report that hasn't been echoed is the fire meeting is Thursday. I will be attending. I will also be attending the softball game. And, you know, I'm just going to say this really briefly, but after the parade, hometown celebration, and many of the things I've witnessed with this community, it's my true belief that it's our volunteers that keep us going, that really step up and take the extra step. And it's just amazing to me. It reminds me of a saying that I'll just say real quick that I've learned through the years and truly believe. And it's from a veterans group. It says, no matter when you served, we are all family. And I believe after this weekend, we can really apply that to Star. No matter when you moved here, we are all family. And that's something I'm actually going to expand upon because it's been on my mind all weekend because I've been asked to write for the Spirit magazine this August. So I'm going to look into that. But other than that, just the fire thing. The rest of that, I hope we all have a good evening and we get this started soon.
Yeah. So on the 20th, we're also going to have Compass here to talk to us about that fiscal impact tool they have. And then shortly, and Carl Miller's coming for that. It's about a 20-minute presentation and Q&A. And then we can utilize that tools after that for our planning purposes, just so everybody's aware. Additionally, we met with Carl on the demographics, and come to find out they're still not right for the city of Star and city of Eagle. I think both is what it has been determined. So they were getting ready for us to approve the numbers, I think, and that's being pushed back a little bit until we can. I think the next week. I think is that right? Next week, the 15th.
I believe so. And I just want to point out that those numbers are critical.
They are
because
critical.
That's part of their 10-year plan, and what numbers get adopted, we have to live with for the next 10 years.
Well,
There may
we
be a
live with
tune-up in
these.
5, but
We live with them until the census comes out in September, which they will modify from there.
Okay.
Yeah. However, they were still not correct. And everything that we talked about on here, when they're talking about planning and roads and all that, is critical for us. I mean, we saw that with ACHD when we had that meeting with them, right? To talk about that. And I just want to echo Dana and crew did a fantastic job on the hometown celebration. The only negative feedback I got was calling Boiseans Yahoos. It's the only negative feedback I got back, but as I had to remind him, I graduated from Boise High, so I'm one of those Yahoos. So,
Did they want you to use a harsher word?
yeah, no. So staff reports, you got anything, chief?
Yes, Mayor, real quick, I know the hour's late. Good evening, Mayor, Council, Jake Vogt, Star Chief of Police. I did just want to kind of report back. We did something a little different this year with Hometown Celebration. And that was we contracted our traffic control out through Northwest Traffic Safety. Several reasons, one being so we can dedicate ourselves for public safety aspect with various things and leave them unbothered and be able to do the traffic control. So it was a great success.
both the parade and, although there's a lot of cars and it takes a while to get everybody out, but the fireworks outflow went well. And so I highly recommend that next year we contract with that same business. They were great to work with. And they understand, the gentleman that runs it does a lot of events. And so he understands, when we speak the same language. And when I explained to him our goals and what we need, he knew exactly and made that work. So it was a great event. And that's all I have.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
I was going out of turn. You were doing the proper thing. I just wanted to say there was, I watched these guys at the parade. Man, they are into traffic.
Yes.
They love it. So I've never seen anybody like traffic control as much. So,
Yes.
That's my feedback.
Councilman Keys?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask you to extend an invitation to your new boss to come to Star, and we'd love to meet him.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say, that I forgot to mention that he was, our new sheriff is Matthew Clifford, the former chief of Eagle Police.
Yes.
And he was sworn in this morning as our new sheriff. So he'll make his rounds.
Yes, he will. He's already reached out to the contract chiefs and he will be coming around. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
A policeman is going to be drinking from a fire hose here for just a little bit, so.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sean? Jacob? Chris? With that said, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 10:26. Thank you.